All right, guys, welcome to another podcast. This is the first time we have a guest while we have Nick Trigili on. I'm so excited. Thank you, Fakhri, for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
So this is Fakhri Mubarak. Fakhri, before we get started, I find your name lovely. And I was telling Nick something about Arabic names, is that we're sort of like American Indians. Our names are very literal.
Yeah.
And like, you know, American Indians will have like sitting bull or something like that. We have things like that. Like my name means lion in Arabic, and your name, Fakhri, means sort of like proud-ish. It's sort of like proud. It's a derivation of the word proud. And then your last name is a derivation of the word blessing. So you're like a proud guy who's blessed.
So from your mouth to God's ears.
I thought maybe nobody's ever known that before. So what I wanted to ask you to begin with, Fakhri, where's your ancestry from?
Well, my father is Palestinian and my mother is Cuban. So I was born in America. I was born in Brooklyn in Red Hook. My parents met when they were younger, and then my parents separated when I was like 5. So although I do have an Arabic name and you know, I feel strongly about the culture and I'm very proud to be Arabic, I was raised more Hispanic and Latin than anything else.
Wow, that's so interesting, actually. I'm also half Arab. So I'm half Arab and half white. You're half Arab and half Hispanic.
Yeah.
And you grew up with your Hispanic side when your parents separated. My parents separated 2 years before you. I was 3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was actually taken by the Arabic side. So I grew up with the Arabic side, you grew up with the Cuban side. That's so interesting. So did you
I think the Arabic side tried to take me, but I escaped.
Oh, no way. No, Nick, you might not even understand this.
Oh, I don't understand. It just sounds funny coming out of Fakhri.
Oh, this is the real thing. Arabs try to take their kids. This is the real thing. Arabs don't like...
That's so funny.
When Arabs get divorced, they're really, like, let's say, uncomfortable with the other person raising the family. So they try to... So I didn't get escape, actually. There's actually a long story behind that. One day I'll tell on the podcast.
One day.
So you got on the Cuban side. So did you ever like have relations with your Arabic side? Did they stay in New York? Were they?
No. So my dad is a very successful man. He's my real father. He's a Neanderthal. My mother taught him how to read. My mother taught him how to write, but everything the man touches turns to gold. Damn. So at one time, he owned about 45 delis in New York. He had 2 grocery stores that had like 18 cash registers. So I, you know, he stayed in my life for a couple of years. I worked with him, you know, on and off. At the age of 8, I had a freaking scooter. I was driving to work in freaking East New York and everything. But yeah, I mean, I spent most of my time with my mother. Actually, my aunts, my great aunts raised me. I lived with them. I lived like with 6th grade aunts in a 1-bedroom apartment for many years.
Sure. Wow. And the area you grew up in New York, it's Brooklyn?
I grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up in Red Hook, Brooklyn, which is at that time, people talking about Red Hook now and they're like, it's an up and coming area. But at that time, the zombies came out of 5 o'clock.
Yeah, it was crazy.
You know, it was one of the toughest projects in New York City. It's pretty much secluded at the end of Brooklyn. So there's only one way in and one way out. It wasn't, it's a whole different world, man.
Yeah.
Now, for some reason, I never been to New York much. Why do people call Brooklyn Crooklyn?
That's why.
Basically, that area.
I thought it was because of the Crips in Brooklyn. There were a lot of Crips.
Yeah, there is now. I mean, the two two biggest gangs in Brooklyn right now are the Wu and the Chow. So the Wu, you heard of Pop Smoke, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Pop Smoke is down with the Wu. So a lot of rappers that are coming out of Brooklyn right now are pretty much down with the Wu and the Chew, which are pretty big gangs. So the Crips and the Bloods are actually under the Wu and the Chew and the Gangsta Disciples. So those are the 3 main gangs above the Crips and the Bloods.
Oh, like the People Nation and the Folk Nation used to be for Chicago.
Yes. Well, the GDs, the Gangsta Disciples, actually come from Chicago.
What about the God Bodies? Are those still active?
No. So, I mean, we had those in Brooklyn and New York. We also had the Familia, which was another Hispanic gang in Brooklyn. Queens has had a whole bunch of gangs, So, yeah, I mean, listen, New York is tough, but like every other city and state, you have your bad parts and your good parts.
Yeah. By the way, one last thing about that. Are the Trinitarios in Brooklyn?
Yes. They're one of the biggest gangs, and
heavy,
especially in the prison. Yeah, I mean, they're everywhere pretty much, but like Uptown Manhattan and like, Uptown Manhattan is mostly where they're at.
The thing about New York gangsters that confuses me living in California for 6 years is that these guys use knives, like machetes and like really gruesome stuff. I mean, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to stab a guy compared to shooting a guy. These guys are vicious in New York.
Yeah.
And another thing interesting about LA compared to New York is that the LA County Jail, which used to be one of the most violent and worst jails in the U.S., is now actually pretty docile, whereas Rikers Island is still crazy. Last question. GS9 is from Brooklyn too?
We have what?
GS9, that those guys that got the rappers that got his name was Bobby.
Oh, Bobby Shmurda.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bobby Shmurda is part of the Wu.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the Wu and the Chow are the two main guys and two main chapters, and then Gangster Disciples, and everybody else is on there. But Bobby Shmurda is down with the Wu.
So now
Bobby's crazy, but I know Bobby. Bobby is.
Oh, you know him, really?
Yeah, he's a wild boy.
I love that rapper compared to I mean, there's so many fake rappers that guy he's just awesome.
Not Bobby.
He's not one of those.
Yeah, he's a gangster.
So growing up with like your Cuban side's aunts, basically, I would assume you didn't have much adult supervision when you were a kid.
I did. I mean, they were my great aunts, but there was at one time there was 6 of them, and we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. Nick knows that I slept on a beach chair for 3 years, actually 4 years with a quilt, and that was my bed for 4 years. Two of my aunts were handicapped inside the 1-bedroom apartment. So as far as supervision, they tried. But we were poor, we were broke, and at an early age, I had to go out and help the family.
And how did you do that? That's what we get because no, I should mention this on the podcast. Like, honestly, one of the things I believe most in is redemption and being able to change your life. Yeah. And so I'd love to know. Sometimes it's important to know how someone's life was before they changed their life, and that inspires other people who may be in their situation. Yeah.
So when my dad left, and my aunts were already, they were my great aunts, they were already retiring, mostly retired. Oh, they were handicapped, and not able to work. At age 8, I was outside. I was coming home from school. I was hanging out, and at that time, I picked up a paper route, to deliver into the buildings. And I figured out, and I'm like, well, if I have 4 paper routes, I make 4 times the amount of money I have, right? So I picked up the paper routes, like every paper at that time, New York Times, Daily News, the Post. Those were the 3 biggest papers, and Newsday. So I had 4 paper routes. So I said, let me pick up 4 of them. So I hired a person to work each paper route. So I didn't work, but they were working for me, and I would get a cut. So it was more than 1 paper route, right? Because it was 4. So not working, I was making money with 4 paper routes. But that wasn't enough money to support my family. So, I approached one of the young drug dealers on the block, and I told him, I said, I want to make money. And he looked at me, he goes, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, I'll get the fuck out of here if you teach me how to make money. He goes, kid. He goes, how old are you? I was like, I'm 8. He was like, get the fuck out of here. I said, listen, man. I said, cops do not stop 8-year-old kids. So if you give me the work, I could walk around these streets and deliver anything you want, and they're not going to stop me. And that's how I started at 8 years old.
Yeah, and that's well known among gangs. They hire children to deliver stuff because it's tough. That's really. And then, did you stay in school?
So I have a double master's. I graduated from St. John's University with a bachelor's in criminal justice with 3.7 GPA. I have a secondary master's in international business. A secondary bachelor's, in international business, and I have a double master's in secondary psychology and in psychology. So I stayed in school. I was always an athlete. So I was an exception to what was running the streets, actually, because I stayed in school and I played sports. And these guys that I worked for didn't let me get out of line. Like, they took care of me, not just financially, but like you said, like, gangs hire kids. But these guys, for the sake of a better word, they weren't bad people, because they took care of me.
Yeah.
You ever heard of the Kings of Kings? In New York?
Latin Kings.
No, the Kings of Kings. Oh, there's this interesting documentary. I'll send it to you later. It's a really interesting story about the history of New York in the 70s. So I wanted to ask you, so what were you like in high school? Who were you? What guy were you in high school? Like, I was a delinquent guy. Nick, we know what kind of guy he is. We had a long interview. What were you in high school?
I was a good student. I was a good athlete. I played baseball for the Bayside Yankees. I played baseball for youth service. I played baseball with a whole bunch of Major League Baseball players: Manny Ramirez, Alan Watson, Steve Carsey, Billy Koch. So I was a very, very good athlete. But what happened to me was I was from the streets. So I had talent and I had a lot of ability. But as you get older, you need to practice more. You need to develop that ability. And the streets is what held me back, because I didn't think about the long run. I'm not going to say, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say I would have been a Major League Baseball player. I'm not going to say I would have been anything professional, because you never know, right? But I did have the talent, and, I was athletic growing up. But at the same time, that's what I did for money. I did for money from age 8 to age 32.
Oh, wow. So, but by the way, your athletic side must have come from the Cuban side, because we don't have that in our genes. Although Palestinians have more, because Palestinians are mixed with like Crusaders and like all of that in the history. So they're very mixed, sort of like with European. But generally, we're not talented at athletes. That's incredible.
It's crazy, because my father's 6'6", 280 pounds.
Your father's 6'6"?
Yeah, I'm 5'5".
Okay, your father has some Crusader blood in him.
I was talking about how you're a different type of a short person, Fak. You're not the regular short guy syndrome with. We were talking about another individual. I'm not even going to name drop him. There's no point even bringing him up.
Yeah,
but I was saying. I'm like, you're a different animal at that size. So
actually, I brought him up. I was like,
well, you did, yeah.
Because I know he's your business. Yeah, I know. So I brought up Fakhri. I was like, that not all short people. But anyway, so I wanted to also know, what I mean? I have tons of short friends that, anyway. Yeah. So what I wanted to know though is, why psychology? Why did you pursue that? Well, actually, we skipped a lot though. How did you get from undergrad to doing master's degree? Let's skip bodybuilding for a second. But what inspired you to do more degrees?
So I graduated from college in 1996. It took me a couple of years, even though I graduated with 3.7 GPA, because I was making a lot of money. Like, I made my first million when I was 19 years old.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no. I've told Nick the story before. At 19 years old, I accumulated $1 million of cash. So I called this girl up that I wanted to bang for like years, right? And she was older than me. And I said, I called her up and she goes, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Have you ever had sex with a millionaire?" And she was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, have you ever had sex with a millionaire?" She was like, "What are you talking about?" They come over the house. So I had $1 million spread on top of the bed. And we had sex. and then she kept calling me, and I was like, nah, I'm good.
I got my shit off.
I got my shit off already a couple of times, especially at that age. When you're 19, bro, you going crazy.
Forget about it.
Yeah, I graduated college in 96, and I went to work for Prudential, and I became a insurance broker and everything else. And then I got my Series 6 and my Series 7. So I eventually became a stockbroker.
Wow, that's awesome.
And 7, yes. I became
a stockbroker. That's not easy to get.
Yeah, I passed it in the first try. I got like a 94% on the test.
So you're just very gifted intellectually and physically, and you had the hardest circumstances, but pushed through. Because Series 6 is really hard. It's not the simple thing to get.
No, well, you said earlier, you called yourself a nerd.
Yeah, you're a nerd too.
I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so after college, how did this bodybuilding thing get involved?
Well, I've been training since I was 16, and I love training, and everybody since I was 16 years old was like, you need to compete. And I was like, nah, I don't like bodybuilders. I don't like them wearing them tight clothes. I don't like those fanny packs. I don't like those leopard tight clothes and everything. And I was getting so many arguments, and like and even fights in the gym because you know how bodybuilders are. They're a bunch of fucking cocky motherfuckers for the most part.
Yeah,
you know, the worst, man. And then me and Nick always have these conversations.
We were having this conversation last night, actually.
Yeah, last night.
That's crazy, man. Let me know, man. I could definitely chime into the conversations like this.
Oh wow!
I already prefaced that with him about you.
Oh my God, bro. And then my friend Juan Carlos Fernandez, JC, he competed a couple of times, and I was like, you know, I'm like, I could do this, man. So in 2000. Atlantic States, June of 2000, he competed, and I was backstage, you know, and he helped, and he told me, can you put the Pro-Tan on me? Because back then we had a Pro-Tan on each other.
Yeah.
We didn't have no machines and stuff like that.
Painted on,
basically, yeah. So I took off my shirt to help him, and everybody started looking at me. So I had remember Matt came over to me, and he goes, dude, you need to compete. And I was like, fuck this. You know, so then after the show, I decided to compete. So the next day, Sunday, I went and I spent $5,000 on gear, you know, so that was the first time I ever bought gear. And, you know, I got excited. So I bought $5,000 worth of it, you know.
I did the first time I bought gear too. It came in a big duffel bag in Dubai and it cost a lot of money. I bought enough for a year. I actually gave it to a pizza delivery guy one day. A pizza delivery guy came over. This is actually a funny story. One day a pump pizza delivery guy came over a month later and I was like, I ordered way too much. Here is a lot of Tren Hex. They're good, like ampules. I gave him. He was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "This is good." Anyway, so you ordered a lot the first time.
Yeah, so that was Sunday after Atlantic States, and the guy who won the Atlantic States, you know, I was posing in the room that Sunday. He goes over to me. He goes, "Oh, you're gonna finally do a show?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Well, I think you'll do okay, but I don't think you'll never win an open show." You know?
Wait, I have to interrupt you because at this point you were still natural. Or no, this is right after you started.
No, I was still natural. I had just picked up the gear that Sunday, right after the show. So I was natural until I was 26. So I trained from 16 to 26. But me being natural, I was 200 pounds, 5-6% body fat. I competed in the ADFPA and USAPL in powerlifting. I finished second in the world in 1993 in Alberta, Canada.
What are your lifts?
My totals at 90 kilos at 198 pounds were 1795 as a junior, which is 23 years old and under, natural. You know, so I eventually broke 2,000 pounds at 198 pounds.
Wow, that's incredible.
And natural, ADFPA.
You've got some good muscle fibers. That's incredible.
Yeah, I have very fast twitch muscles.
So he told you would never make it past that point, and then what happened?
Well, I turned pro before he did, and I was more successful than he has. So you know how that goes.
Yeah. So how was your competitive history as a pro? Because I know you're very well known as a trainer, but how was your? How long did you compete? How did it go?
All right, so my first show was November of 2000. I won the overall novice, and I finished third in the open. 47 guys in the open at a regional show, which is like, you don't even see that anymore. You know, Nick knows, because when Nick started, it was just like that too. Yeah. So I finished third. I finished third behind Ron Brown, who finished fifth at the Nationals like a month later, not even a month later, a couple of weeks later. And the guy who finished second in the universe. So I finished third behind these guys. And then in late 2000, I got double pneumonia and respiratory failure. So I was on a ventilator and I was in a coma for 8 days.
For what? How did that happen?
I have no idea. I was never sick. So growing up, I'm too sick to go to school. I'm too sick to go outside. Like, I was that little kid that would run outside naked when I was like 3-4 years old in the snow and do snow angels. You know? So I was never, ever sick. So what happened was, I guess when I was training for the show, you know how people complain about being tired and being like, you know, withdrawn from life and everything else and complaining. So I thought that was just it. But in reality, I was getting sick. So by the time I got to the hospital, I was passing out in the house. So by the time I got to the hospital, I had paste. It wasn't fluid anymore. It was paste in my lungs because it had been there for such a long time. So they had to go in my lungs, drain my lungs. And yeah, I was in a coma for 8 days. So on the 10th day, I woke up and I escaped from the hospital because I didn't want to be there no more.
You know, that's really interesting because some people over complain when they diet and they don't have anything going wrong. And then there are some people like, actually, I do this sometimes too. And I guess you do too, where there's actually a problem and I'm ignoring it.
Yeah.
It's the opposite.
Yeah, forget about it.
I never complained. I was never one to, I'm hungry, I'm tired, too much cardio. If you're going to complain, go play ping pong. Don't bodybuild.
Exactly. Yeah. So after the pneumonia, what happened?
So I got better from pneumonia, and then I went to nationals in 2001 as a spectator, and I saw Johnny Jackson win. And I was like, shit, I might, Johnny Jackson's a great bodybuilder. He's won a lot of shows, and you could even say he's a Hall of Fame bodybuilder. So that was the first. That's when he turned pro that show. So I competed the next year at the Atlantic States in June 2002, and it wasn't even close. Like I walked on stage and it was just over. It wasn't even close. Uh-huh. And then I did nationals 2003. I finished 4th behind 3 future pros. And then 2005 I did the USA's and I won my class and I finished. Phil Heath, me and Phil Heath got our pro card. So I lost to Phil Heath at the USA's, but I got my pro card.
Wow, incredible! That's an incredible competition.
That was a big show, man. Fuck, yeah, everybody was in that show. 05. That was so many good pros came out of that show.
Wow.
So, once you became a pro, did you compete as well?
Yeah, so I made a bad decision to compete, and it was a financial decision because at that time I got signed by a magazine deal, and a supplement deal which don't exist no more. But we were lucky enough to have it, right, Nick? At that time,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So they've kind of like, I don't think they forced me, but they kind of like edged me on to do the Charlotte Pro. In October. So I maintained my shape and I did the Charlotte Pro and the night before the Charlotte Pro, I was in ridiculous shape. Like it was crazy, man. But I went to sleep and I woke up with my heart going boom, boom, boom. It was like skipping like 2 beats. And I woke up my wife, Sandra, and I said, something's wrong. She's like, what's wrong? I'm like, my heart's like not beating. And even like she felt it, and then I started passing out. When I dry out for a show, I dry out for a show in a whole different way. And I've never done it with a client. Just put it this way: Mohammed Ben Aziza died from dehydration, and my way of drying out is pretty close to what he used to do. So I had to eat. I had to because my wife was forcing me. I was in the bathroom like, nah, I'm ripped. I'm not eating. I'm ripped. I'm going to be Branch Warren tomorrow and Dennis James. I'm not, so.
How were you drying out? That was so extreme. That was similar to Mohammed Ben Aziza. So, no. I don't want, clearly this is dangerous. Mohammed Ben Aziza died, but I'm just curious.
All right. So basically what you do is you usually cut off water. Please, guys, please don't do this. Like, please, I'm serious. Like, please don't do this. Like, you're supposed to cut off water the night before the show, or sometimes not. Like at the USA's, I had a 2-liter Coke drinking backstage. So every prep is different, right? So for the Charlotte Pro, I was in such a long prep that my body was drying out. But I wanted to make such a spectacular, first appearance at the pro stage. I basically went without water for like 4 days. So my only liquids was
4 days.
4 days. So my only liquids was sucking juice from oranges and from apples. That was the only liquid I was having, And then my body was able to take a diuretic called Demidex without flattening out. So when I started the Demidex on Friday morning, because the show was Saturday, without the water, it was just too much on the heart, and the heart just started skipping a beat.
You took a diuretic after a Demidex after dehydrating for 4 days, basically.
I took 3 halves that Friday. Yeah.
Holy crap! Wow.
I didn't know you took that much.
But that's the thing. Like, I don't know much about bodybuilding, but I think that to get to that level of dryness that used to be occurring in the 90s, people were doing that kind of stuff.
They were, but that's extreme. Like I've never done this with a client, and I never will. Like sometimes, like I want to be so shredded, I want to see my heartbeat through my skin. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that.
You don't want to do that.
heart might fall out of the chest, man.
So needless to say, you had to eat something and drink something. So you didn't come out. It undid some of that condition that you were doing.
No, so the next morning when I woke up, I was like, all right, so I got a couple of hours. I tried to pull some little things here and there. And then when I was backstage, the Charlotte Pro was really cool because they had our own booth. So we had our own name tags and our own booth. It was really cool what they did. And then I called my wife. I was like, I said, can my wife come backstage? So she went backstage and I took off my clothes and she took a look at me and she was like, you're off. Like, Nick knows that Sandra don't play. Like Sandra's as honest as possible. She was like, you're off. Yeah. So when I went to compete, I got first call out. So like first call, I got second call out, but I was put into the first call out. So, my first pro show, I'm standing there with Branch Warren, Dennis James, Mohammed Mustafa, George Farah, and the other tall guys. So they put me in the middle of Mohammed Mustafa and a guy who's 6'5", and I'm 5'5". So when they pulled me on the stage, Steve goes, get in the middle, blah, blah, blah. So I looked at Steve and the whole audience, and I was like, what the fuck? So I looked at these two guys. I'm like, I'm standing next to two giants over here, Yeah. But I fell back to 8th place, Ben. And that's, I deserved it.
For people that don't know, this is the open class.
Yeah, no, it was open class.
Yeah, there was no 200-pound. Everyone probably thinks it was 212 or something. There was no 212 back then. It was all open.
Oh, I wish, man. Nick, if there was 212, it would have been a whole different story.
Oh, forget it. You probably would have had a long career. You probably would have had a long career.
Yeah,
you actually were competing just in the period in which there was no 212, and before that there was the 202. There was no 202.
It was before that. Yeah.
Oh, it's before the 202 also?
Yeah, before 202.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay.
The 202, I think, was only 1 year or 2 years, if that. And then they went right. And they went right to 212.
But in the 70s, they had something, right? In the 70s, they had
they had an under
sport class.
Yeah, under 220 Miss Olympia, I think it was something like that.
Yeah.
By the way, I have a question. Why is it 212 instead of a height requirement?
Because no, I don't want height requirements. I like the 212, man, because when it's height requirements, they put these like men's classical physique, right? So I've thought about doing that because I can't Nick is like, this guy's crazy right now. So I thought about doing that, the classical physique, but I would have
talk
to
about why
down.
That's crazy later. Yeah,
I would have to drop down to 180. For me to drop down to 180, I have to smoke crack like every day. I wouldn't smoke crack. No. At 180.
I totally agree about, not that I know what I'm talking about. I totally agree about the height versus weight. But what I mean to say is, instead
just height?
of 212 class, just height. If you're below 5'8", you can compete in 212.
That's actually a good idea.
That way you can max out the shorter mass monsters, and you can just, instead of like...
Yeah, you can't do both, though. You can't control both.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't think... Yeah. So what happened after that competition?
So that was a Charlotte Pro. I took a couple of years off. So that was 2005, and then I went into a pretty bad time financially. My money was confiscated. Oh, go ahead. You have a question?
Yeah. Actually, so before we talk about that money part, let's talk about in between this whole time since we skipped. How are you supporting yourself financially, and in terms of bodybuilding, what was the business of bodybuilding, and then what was maybe your other side hustles as well?
No, the bodybuilding was never a business. Bodybuilding was only a hobby for me. So
that point.
Yeah, all the way until probably my first contract. But even in my first contract, I was making. I was making a lot.
So were you training people or?
No, I was hustling, man. I hustled from 8 to 30. I hustled from 8 to 32 years old.
So you were a hustling bodybuilder. That's cool. Are there many of those?
Not the way I did
it. There's levels to it.
There's levels to it. But there's people like, is it Vince Taylor or somebody just got released? Not Vince Taylor. Somebody just got released from prison for something similar to that. He was in the South. You know what I'm talking about? The amazing poser. The amazing black guy, the best poser. He just got released on the South. RX Muscle made an interview of him. He was talking about calling out Shawn Ray. You guys don't know what I'm talking about.
Mel Chansey?
Yeah.
No, not Mel Chansey.
The black guy. That's a great poser.
I know. He's a short guy. Short black guy.
On Sherman?
No.
No, he's
Marvelous Mel, whatever the fuck is.
Melvin Anthony?
Melvin Anthony. There you go.
He just got arrested for ecstasy in
He's
the
always
South.
been out of jail. He's always been out of jail.
Yeah. But anyway, so you're saying not many people were hustling like that. Interesting. Very interesting. So you're saying your money you got confiscated in 2005?
I got confiscated $7.5 million by the U.S. government.
But okay. Now the numbers are crazy. So when you're talking about $1 million when you're 19 years old, I'm a little bit familiar with this kind of industry, and people don't make $1 million in cash by the time they're 19 unless they're like really big shots. I mean, that's a kind of thing. That's not, you're not on a corner doing something, and you're not doing it by yourself, let's say, at that point. So at the 7.5, this is cool. You're
I told you it was going to be cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. How much can you tell us about that? Let me put it that way.
What do you want to know?
Everything. How did you accumulate that amount of money? I mean, this is crazy. You're talking about a really successful, let's call it hustler. You're really successful. How did you do that?
We were amongst the biggest distributors of. You know what? I'm not talking about this because I'm trying to show off, because everybody knows my story. I've never hit it. You know, I used to go to bodybuilding shows with H1 Hummers. I used to go to bodybuilding shows with BMW H Seriouses at that time. You know, so everybody knows I had money before I bodybuilt. So this isn't something I'm trying to show off. No. And then the next thing is, you know, you said something earlier.
Wait, did Nick know you then?
Nick,
we knew each other.
Oh yeah, he was like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me and Nick have always been very close. We've always had a lot of respect for each other, and we've always kept in touch no matter what.
So you were seeing the ballin' kind of status.
Nick was the very end of it. You know. Yeah. If he saw,
I knew. Let's just say this: I knew who Fakhri was since like 2003 because I was already in bodybuilding. But as far as having a relationship with him, that was at the tail end of it. It was the overcome. It was like the building process again. I think at that time, the rebuilding. You know, rebuilding. But
so you were saying you're always known for that. Tell us the story.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I started at 8 years old, you know, running the blocks and, you know, moving money and moving, you know, vials of crack here and there, you know, for my guys. And then a couple of years later, you know, I said, I want more and I want my own thing. So I started my own thing. And then, you know, in this business, people get knocked off and, you know, it's not a safe business. So eventually we moved up. At 16, we had our own crew, you know, and we were bringing stuff in from South America and distributing it. And it wasn't a small operation. It just wasn't. You know, it wasn't steroids. You know, people like, oh, you hustle. You're bodybuilding, so no, it wasn't. It wasn't steroids. It wasn't. You know, there was a little bit of ecstasy involved towards the end. You know, for example, like one night in Sound Factory, we would make $30,000 in ecstasy. You know, just that one night. You know, if it was Christmas or it was Thanksgiving, it was probably like $50,000 a night. You know, just on ecstasy. So we did a lot of stuff in different clubs around New York City, but. Yeah, it was a big deal, and it was a lot of fun. You know, no, it wasn't ethical. No, I would tell nobody not to do it. But here's my thing: anybody who's broke and poor, I'm like, there's no reason to be broke and poor. I live by all means necessary. By all means necessary. So if you have a family and your mother's suffering, and your aunts are suffering, and your kids are suffering, and you're not making money, to me, you're not a man. You know, not most people are going to say, well, you can't be a man and do stuff like that. But I'd rather be doing stuff like that to see my family struggle.
Actually, that's a good point. Morality starts with those closest to you. You can't be thinking about some, you know, like, for example, the effects of crack on some person you've never met when your family's starving. Yeah. Morality starts with those closest to you. Take care of those closest to you. Take care of those.
Always.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the question is, though, how are you guys not arrested? Because eventually, like it takes 10, 15 years, eventually everyone gets arrested.
It was more like 24 years, 25 years. I've been arrested. I've been arrested 14 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But never, I've been arrested 14 times in central bookings. I've been called in by the feds, because the feds can hold you for 72 hours. I've been called in by the feds 3 times. A case on me never stuck because as I got older, I got away from touching stuff. You know, so I was more of a mediator, more of a business deal maker, stuff like that. But no, I mean, we have people that got hit with RICO charges. I faced 360 months, which is 30 years in jail, twice in my life, and with the same case, but they try to push it twice for a RICO charge.
With a federal, that was a federal.
Oh, of course, yeah, RICO's federal. Yeah, RICO's federal. But I've had friends do 30 years, still doing 30 years. I've had friends do 10 years, 15 years. I mean, this is real, man. This isn't, the bodybuilding world of happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, what many people don't know is that the feds, when they start a case on you, if they don't develop it within 6 months, they have to sort of drop it. So they can start cases on you, but if it's not fully, then they drop it because they have funds. The feds have funds and they can't keep funds on a case that's not going through. So sometimes you're gonna say something?
We had a 12-year investigation on us.
Wow.
So when they brought me in, there was a book about this big, and they had pictures of us from the late 90s, right next to us at clubs. They had pictures of me buying cars. When the yellow H2 first came out, I had the yellow one. So there was only 3 or 4 people in the whole city of New York that had it. So when I went to pick up my car, it was Busta Rhymes was there. It was Ralph Lauren's assistant. It was an assistant of somebody else. I forgot who it was, and it was me. So I called my wife. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing here, man? These people are really multi-millionaires and billionaires picking up their car, So the feds actually had a satellite of my house, and the only thing you saw was a red truck, a yellow Hummer right next to my house, And they hated me because we got you. This is us right next to you. And I'm like, that's you? They were like, yeah. I'm like, damn, but you lost all your hair in the last couple of years. What happened? Oh, motherfucker, I'm going to kick your ass. I'm like, but you've gained so much weight. What happened? Yeah, it's funny now, but, as I get older, I laugh at it, but it was stupid, It was just dumb to interrogate them. I mean, just get them upset like that.
Which is you bring up an important point, which is that people who grew up in poverty often don't, or even not, even just on the lower end of the socioeconomic scale, when they earn money, they don't have the skills to realize to keep it or to invest it,
Well, only because you have money doesn't make you an investor, that doesn't make you smart. That's why most lottery winners lose their money because they're just not smart.
Exactly. Well, it's the fact that you're not used to having that money, and the money you were used to having always got spent.
Yeah.
Right? Because every month, whatever you have gets spent. So now you got a lot more. You expect it has to get spent again. But another thing that you mentioned, the Sound Factory. I hear a lot about the. I was never in New York, but I hear a lot about that place.
Leo, you would have loved that place.
I have a feeling. I think you told me a story about that place a couple of days ago.
I have tons of stories about that. That was my second home.
So you mentioned the ecstasy of the Sound Factory. Did you ever go there yourself to have fun?
Oh yeah, every weekend.
Oh really?
I would start there Friday and leave Monday.
I'll tell you a quick story. We were there Thanksgiving Eve, right? So Thanksgiving Eve was always a big party. So we're there Thanksgiving Eve. I'm under the influence, So I'm sitting down. I'm smelling turkey. I'm like, wow, I'm bugging out, man. I'm smelling turkey and Sound Factory. So I go downstairs and I'm searching for the turkey, and I'm like, am I bugging out? Or is it turkey? So they did a turkey dinner for the staff, So I started eating turkey dinner with them. So after that, I had to go home. So Sandra left. Sandra, my wife, left at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, to help my mother cook. And I went to eat Thanksgiving dinner at my mother's house, and I'm sitting there with these big ass black glasses. My hat is down to here, and I'm like, it was fun, man. I mean, we were young, man. So when you're young, you're supposed to have fun, right?
Yeah,
it's true. You mentioned that you had a wife, and this was really a long time ago. So you've been married for a very long time?
I've been with Sandra for 22 years.
Wow, that's incredible. I always, whenever I hear something like that, that changes my opinion of a person, because to stay with one person for 22 years, you've got to have ethics, loyalty, morality, all kinds of things like that. That says a lot about you.
God bless her heart for putting it up with me, man.
Yeah.
So anyway,
she's built for it.
He's definitely built for it, yeah.
so your money got confiscated in 2005, 7.5 million in cash or in assets?
2007, that's when that happened.
Was it in assets or cash?
So we had money in different bank accounts, but it wasn't just the bank accounts that got confiscated, but it was the stash houses. So I was about to pull one last job, I guess to say, and then just get out. And the last job was gonna bring in $30 million. So I'm talking about this because you have a 7-year, window from when something happens to when they could prove a case. Yeah. So for the first 7 years, I didn't talk shit about this.
You never talk about it. Wow.
Never talked about it. And then now I can say it's like Jay-Z, right? So Jay-Z is a hustler, and he got out of it, and now he's a billionaire, and much props to Jay-Z and very few other guys that I know that did this, so that were able to get out of it. So yeah, I mean, it was a total of 7.5 million.
Well, you mentioned that. How many like in that industry do people ever get out of it?
Nah, not really.
Not really, huh? So most people end up, and does anyone ever end up not, like 50-year-old and not arrested, like free?
Very, very, very few people do. I mean, the chances of getting, especially nowadays, I mean, you have phones that you can record people. There's cameras everywhere. It
was so easy back then to hustle, though. Like it was like literally like printing money. It was literally like printing money.
Cameras, man. And then when Dinkins was mayor, it was like a free fall. It was like the wild west.
Yeah.
And when Giuliani became mayor, we just had to smarten up and change things around. But that doesn't stop. It still hasn't stopped until this day. And
never will.
It never will. They'll always find a freaking way. Like that wall that Trump's building. You're building a wall, but I could dig under the wall, or I could throw shit over the wall. You know what I'm saying? It's like, like one of my friends lives in Texas, right? McAllen, Texas. So his backyard literally has the wall. So he has a tunnel dug under the wall. So he was like, you want to go into Mexico? I'm like, all right, so we got to go all the way around to like, San Diego to cross through the San Diego border. He was like, no, we just go through my backyard. I'm like, what the fuck?
No, I know. Obviously, I was thinking that too. Like, obviously, just over the wall or under the wall. It's not like a physics experiment. It's not that hard.
Like, throw it over the wall. You might have to be there for a couple of hours throwing all those bricks, but you could get them over eventually.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Actually,
and people are getting more crafty nowadays anyway. They'll fake drones. Who knows what
drones?
Yeah. Who knows?
Come on, man. Drones is like the worst thing they created, man.
Yeah, it really is.
A funny thing about the Sound Factory that I didn't think about. I thought the Sound Factory, because I hear about it from bodybuilders from New York, I thought it was a bodybuilding thing. But I actually interviewed this guy called Gene. I forgot his last name. But anyway, he's a snitch on one of the mafia families of New York. His uncle was a very big guy in one of the mafia families. He was telling me stories of him being in the Sound Factory. And I was like, you don't lift weights. He's like, no, everybody was in the Sound Factory.
That was the place.
Including the mafia guys. Like, they were,
they loved it. They loved it.
Yeah,
celebrities. There was always somebody there, the who's who. There was always someone there.
Now, not to go like this podcast went off bodybuilding a little bit and more into hustling. I don't know much about hustling, but I know a little bit more about gangs in California. And what I was surprised by is I actually have some friends who are former gang members and stuff like that. And I ask them sometimes, like, is there anybody, because these are killers, these are gang members that are well-known killers and stuff like that from gangs. I asked them, is there anybody that was a hitter from a neighborhood, a killer that never got arrested, that is free? They're like, there's a bunch of people in California that are known like mass murderers that just got lucky. They just never got arrested. They're not rats. They just never got arrested. They got lucky. Anyway,
you gotta remember there was no cameras back then. There was like no street cameras. There was no like door cameras, ring. There wasn't
ATM cameras, fucking everything. Cars, everyone's.
Which is a great example. There was a guy in New York, the Gambino family head, that got killed recently by some guy who was dating his daughter. And they just have the footage of the guy driving up in the car. They have everything. I mean, you can't. In LA, you know what they have? They have these fake palm trees that are. Have you heard of them?
Up.
Have you heard of them?
Crazy.
No.
Oh, there's a real thing. And I only learned about this from gang members in LA. There's fake palm trees all across the neighborhoods in LA and South Central. And you can see them. I've seen them. They're fake, and they have a sound device in them that is really accurate at hearing triangulating gunshots. So if there's a gunshot, these palm trees are what catch you, and the police will be with you in a second. So nowadays, gang stuff in LA has cooled down. So anyway, what happened after 2007? Did you move? So how was bodybuilding? Did you continue bodybuilding? When did the online coaching begin?
So after 2007, we had the marshals kick us out of our apartment, and we were homeless for like 5 days. My wife went to live with my mother, and I basically stayed I slept 2 days in the park, because it wasn't cold. But I stayed in a friend's house, and what I was eating pretty much for like a month was like protein bars and protein shakes from my friend who had a supplement store at that time. But that wasn't the first time I was homeless. To go back to understand why I've done all this is because I've seen my mother cry from hunger. I've seen my mother holding me, in a shelter, and giving me the last piece of bread and her crying. We've been in shelters and people getting raped right next to us. We've been in shelters. So when you're in a shelter, you have your stuff and you go to sleep, people rob you. So what you have to do is you put your stuff in a bag and you tie your bag to your finger, because if anybody tries to grab your bag, it pulls your finger. So this wasn't a decision that this is what I want to do with my life and I'm happy about it. This was a decision about survival and not seeing my mother suffer and cry and be hungry and cry from hunger and my aunts. My aunts needed help, and I was the only male in the family. There was no other male in the family, so I had to stand up at a very early age. And it's funny because I see like 7, 8-year-old kids now, and they're like,
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's wrong with you, man? Like, I was a man by then. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, it's very true. The new generation is different.
Nothing.
And so you ended up with nothing at that point, 2007. How did you rebuild yourself?
So in 2008, actually late 2007, somebody contacted me, Mike Knoll from Mike Knowles. You know Mike Knowles, Nick?
Yeah, I know Mike Knowles.
Yeah, you know Mike Knowles. So he was the first person that contacted me. He goes, "Hey, you do contest prep?" I was like,
That's so random.
"Yeah." But remember, like, I've been in bodybuilding for a long time already. I was Mr. USA. I was
The contest prep wasn't big back then, though, so it's kind of.
No, I was the first one to really start doing it online. Like, literally,
Yeah.
I was the first one to start like advertising it. People hate when I say I'm the father of online coaching, but that's the truth because I'm the first one that really started it back then.
Wow.
So Mike Knowles contacted me and he goes, "You do the contest prep?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "How much you charge?" So I was looking up what Chad Nichols was charging. And I was like, 3,000. He was like, "Can I give you 1,500?" I was like, "Yeah." The next day, Bakeem Razier from Peoria, I remember the guy.
Man.
You know Bakeem too?
I know who he is. I don't know him personally.
He was a big motherfucker, man.
He's ginormous, that boy.
He
was over the forums back then.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was. He was big on the forums back then.
Huge.
So Bakeem, he contacted me and he asked me the same question. I was like, "Yeah, I do contest prep."
I think he worked with John O'Regan, too, at one point.
Did he? You work with John?
I think John had him. I think that's where I really kind of met him at from that. John,
That's why he got so fucking big.
Yeah, pretty much.
So Bakeem contacted me. So that Friday, I get both checks in the mail. One money order, one check. And it's $3,000. So I look at this and I'm like, I just made $3,000 in a month in a week with 2 people. So I started advertising, I started marketing, and this was on MySpace, early MySpace, and I just built it, man. I just built it, and I'm OCD about winning. Like, everything I do, I have to win, so I take it serious. And little by little, I started building a business, and business increased a nice amount of money, and from there, with that money, I opened up the store, and then from the store, I started other businesses. We had a Tropicana route in Florida. We had 2 Tropicana routes in Florida. And then, businesses here and there, some worked out, some didn't, most didn't, you fail more than you succeed, but as long as you succeed at a higher level, that's what matters. But, now we're doing pretty good. We're into real estate now, we still have the store, we still have the coaching, so I can't complain.
So you bring up an interesting point. So failure failing in businesses, which is something that a lot of people like are scared of. They're scared of failure so much that, I mean, this brings into psychology 101. A lot of people are scared of failure. I am too, honestly. It stopped me from doing a lot of things in my life just because if I don't do it, I can say, hey, I never did it. It's not that I failed. But if you failed, you feel, you know, it hits your ego. So people don't want to fail in life in general, but in business, you've got to fail. Okay, I got two things to say about this. One thing is failure is a good thing in life in general, not even in business. Why? If you fail, that means you're trying to do something you can't do, which means you're trying to grow. Yeah. If you're not trying to, if you never fail, you're never overshooting what you can do, which means you're never growing. Number one, failure is a sign of success. That's what I think. Number two, about failure in business. A lot of my years in my youth, but not all of them, I spent in Dubai. Dubai is a city that was founded on entrepreneurial business. Many people don't know this. Dubai never had oil. So everything we have in Dubai is come from our business people. Yeah. And they built the city. We never had oil, nothing, zero. All those buildings are business people from Dubai. So when I grew up there, I got a chance. I was lucky, you know, my father didn't have any business and he was basically poor when I was growing up. But my friends' fathers were, you know, business people. So I got a chance to see how their businesses developed. And I remember I was like 7 years old. And my dad was telling me about how my friend's father had just opened another business that had failed and he went bankrupt again. He went bankrupt 3 times. Okay. I remember total bankruptcy, total failure. 4th time he opened up a signage company in Dubai. You would never think that a signage company would. Yeah, he opened up a signage company and an exhibition company. The exhibition company is now the biggest in the Middle East and one of the biggest in the world. He is probably a billionaire, but Forbes doesn't know yet. And his son now travels the world with an entourage. He's my age, does whatever the hell he wants because his dad wasn't scared of failing 4 times. That 4th time, he made it. So that's something everyone should learn from, I think. What do you think about that?
No, I agree 100%. I mean, you can't, you don't know how to succeed until you fail because, you know, when you fail is when you really kick in and start rethinking. Let me just say one thing. Most of the business I failed at was with other people, you know. So I'm not big on partnerships, you know, not to say that it was all their fault, but sometimes when you partner with people, you have different ideas, you know, and you can't say, well, I need to do this my way, you know, because you're partners, right? So you have to take the advice of your partner. So that's the reason why I'm not really big on partnerships anymore. Everything I've done on my own, I've done pretty well, you know, and it's all been about scaling up. Like I started a supplement company in 2015, you know, called Factrition, and we did well. You know, we did. I think we did like 750 our first year, and gross sales, which is pretty well. If you ask other even multi-million-dollar companies, they're gonna tell you they didn't do the numbers. But I got tired of it. I got tired of stores saying, I want a better deal. Now, I own a store named NXT Sports Nutrition in Astoria, Queens. And that store has been one of the top stores in the whole country since 2011. So if NXT Sports Nutrition is not asking for those certain deals and for free refills and everything else, how am I going to give that to like another store? You know, so I'm the type of person, I'm like, if you get on my nerves, I'm like, fuck that. I'm not doing shit. You know, so, yeah. So
Go ahead.
No, so that was the reason why, you know, little by little I started getting out of it. And then what I did was I had about $100,000 of inventory at that time. So I sold all the inventory out. And then, you know, I actually came out to like 125. And with that 125, I bought 2 houses, you know, and I fixed them and I flipped them and I sold those 2 houses for $400,000. And then with that money, I kept, you know, doing more and more properties. And then now, you know, I'm not sure if Nick wants to say it or not, but you know, me and Nick are involved in a partnership as well. So that's what we're doing right now. And we're trying to build a private fund, you know, to help other investors. Because everybody wants to do real estate now, right? Everybody's
you're doing a real estate fund?
We're starting one in January and February. Everything's already set. You know, I have a hard money lender who's been in the industry for 16, 17 years. I think longer than that, actually, probably like 20 years. So he's gonna do all the underwriting and everything else.
Well, that's really interesting. Real estate funds are a great way for people to invest in real estate, diversify their investments without, you know, it's a little guy like, you know, a little guy can maybe buy a house, but then he's got all his investments in that house. Something goes wrong in that market, in that city, anything, he's screwed. But when you've got a real estate fund, you've got, you know, diversification. That's a great way for people to, also for people that are, by the way, my background is in private equity.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I have from the highest schools and the best companies in finance. It's a great way to diversify your investments. You know, you want some things in real estate, but you don't want to go buy 2 houses. You want to have a diversification there, even within real estate. A couple of things you mentioned that are so interesting. Okay, first of all, supplement business. You were mentioning a supplement business. That was the one that you got out of. Was it a supplement company?
Yeah, so I started my own company. So I've been doing formulations for, I guess I don't want to name the company because I have what's that called?
Yeah, I do formulations also, and I can't.
NDA or whatever.
Yeah, what is it called when you sign?
NDA, I think
NDA. Yeah, I have a whole bunch of them, so I can't name the company, but I've been doing formulations for a while, and then I started.
You do that for more than one company?
I've done it for. I've formulated a few products that
you had. I think you had more contracts than most pro bodybuilders after you retired from competing off the stage. You used to have contracts. I mean, if you go through the list, people can look at your history and see all the companies you were with.
I had Muscle Tech.
You weren't even competing. You were just working.
No, I wasn't. I had Muscle Tech first. I had Farmer Freak. I was with All Max for many years.
Yeah, All Max.
And then what happened was I started my own supplement company, and I was so honest that I told All Max, I'm like, listen, I'm starting my company, and they were like, well, your contract is over in 7 months. I'm like, but I'm starting my own company, so I don't feel comfortable taking your money for the next 7 months. I could have lied to you, but I didn't do that. And I was making, I think it was $3,000 at the time per month. So that's $41,000. So they were like, okay. So the next day they went and they signed Steve Kukulos to his contract when I gave up mine. I was like, congratulations, Steve. He gave me my money.
I remember when that happened. Yeah, it was funny. Wait, you were there for a hot minute, though. You were there for a minute.
I was there for 4 years, and then then I had magazine deals with Flex and with MD, and I kept going back and forth. At that time, they would pay you. At that time, they would pay, not only did I have my own article, but I had my own ghostwriting that I used to write for the magazines and
ghostwriting.
Yeah, I mean
that's all the magazines are, though, Leo. Well, they were, I should say.
No, what I'm shocked by is that you were doing ghostwriting as wow. That's really interesting. So one thing that not many people know is that a lot of these pro bodybuilders that have supplement. Well, one thing that they don't know, first of all, is that pro bodybuilders, a lot of them that have supplement companies, they don't even know where they get their supplement ingredients from. It's actually, there are some major supplement manufacturers in the US. You basically go to them and you tell them, hey, here's my brand, here's my formulation I want. The funny thing is, some of those formulations are not even done by the pros. They're done by other people like myself and like you, who secretly are doing formulations for them. Which is very interesting. But you made a supplement company. Now, the thing is, I wonder, are there returns in the supplement industry? Does it depend on marketing mostly? Because these guys are all selling the same ingredients.
Now, see, that's the problem now. The problem back then, the good thing back then was like if you wanted to start a supplement company, you had to order 5,000-10,000 pieces of a product. Right, and that was a lot of money. Now the manufacturers, you could order 100 to 150 pieces of a product. But now everybody can have their own fucking supplement company without having money, right? Yeah. So the market got so saturated, And again, I had stores and asking for stuff and traveling, and it came to the point. I'm like, all right, so I if I push this, I could make $250,000 a year, but I'm working my ass off. I'm traveling literally every weekend. Sometimes you would travel for 2 weeks straight across the country, and I wasn't happy with that.
For marketing reasons.
Marketing reasons, to visit the stores, visit the vendors. Marketing at that time was crazy because you had to market in magazines, right? So an ad in the Flex magazine would be $10,000 for one page.
Yeah.
And that was my price. I don't even know what the hell they were charging anybody else.
But at that time you had to stock in stores. Like now people can sort of sell through their YouTube channel, online business. It wasn't like that then in 2007.
No.
Right.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Online sales weren't that big. I mean, you had bodybuilding.com, which was a freaking giant at that time.
Europa.
You had Bulk Nutrition, which was really big at that time. For example, Bulk Nutrition sold for like 40 million to somebody, and then the company didn't do nothing. So the guy got out of it just in time. But yeah, it was. I wouldn't say it was easier back then, but then when I got back into it in 2015 on my own, it was too saturated. It's too saturated.
Yeah. But there are some people, like without naming names, but there are some YouTubers who have their own supplement companies. They just sell on their website. So was that not doable?
It was. I mean, there's a Instagram influencer named Sasha. Sasha is huge. So my manufacturer in Florida was doing Sasha's. At that time, she only had a protein. So I remember I went to the manufacturer. There's 2 18-wheelers outside, and they were packing in Sasha's protein. So I asked Tejas, my manufacturer. I was like, "Who's that for?" He goes, "That's Sasha." I'm like, "Damn, what's that? Like a year supply?" He goes, "No, she goes through that in a month."
Yeah.
The following was so big that she would just sell everything,
Yeah.
Yeah, or like Rich Piana, for example. He's passed away, but like he could sell his supplements. He didn't have to stock them in stores, I assume.
Rich is a whole other story.
Yeah, it's a whole other animal.
The supplement side of it?
Okay, so Rich's product name was Rich Piana, but Rich never owned the company.
I heard that, yeah.
Yeah, the company was owned by his ex-wife and another business partner that was based in Tampa. But Rich was the company, right? Because when Rich was alive, the company was really pumping and doing very well. And then when he passed away, the company is still around, but they're just not doing as well as they were.
Yeah. So okay, so that's about the vendors. But what I was going to say about supplements is that, there are a lot of first of all, there are formulations that can deliver. I don't know as much about bodybuilding supplements. That I don't know if there are like formulations that can deliver really better products than currently exist. But in the nootropics, have you ever heard of nootropics? In the nootropics market, there is so much room for improvement. Like I can produce a formulation which will be better than any formulation on the market right now. I know how to do that, and I know it can be made. And if people try it, they'll be like, "Damn, this works," and it can be legal. So there's much room for that in the nootropics. I don't know about bodybuilding because it's more about pump products and pre-workouts. Definitely, there's some room for improvements. I've been asked by many manufacturers to help with pre-workout formulations. But anyway, that's one thing. The other thing is the research chem side of it. Did you ever think of that? Because that's let's establish this here. I'm not going to say who it is, but I'm friends with a formerly large Sarms seller, actually the largest Sarms seller in the U.S. And he was making 150,000 profit a month, 1.5 million a year. Now that's in Sarms. The research chem guys, I don't even know. And I think they make even more, like the guys that sell Phenibut, stuff like that. Did you ever think of getting into that gray market kind of stuff? Because if you do, there are other products there are other research chemicals that are not being produced that these guys don't read papers. They don't know what's out there. There's a lot of things. It costs about $30,000 to have it manufactured, have a new molecule manufactured by a Chinese pharmaceutical manufacturer. But once you do, you own it. Like, for example, Tony Huge. I don't know if you remember. You know Tony Huge?
Yeah.
Tony Huge a few years ago. I don't know if you remember when he came out with Ment.
Yeah.
Ment. Remember that?
Yeah.
Ment is a steroid that's actually been in the research for a long time.
Yeah,
what
forever.
happened was, I'm friends with Tony. I don't know if this is the truth, but I assume this is what happened, is that it was not being produced. So he went and got a Chinese manufacturer to produce it. And then there's nobody else producing it. For the next 6 months, if he advertises it, he gets all the revenue. Do you ever think about something like that?
I've looked at some things. I've tried to find some things. I've looked back in the research, journals from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, some stuff that was created and discontinued for a reason. Mint was one of them, actually. Sarms was one of them. I actually owned the Sarm company. It was called Revolt Pharma. In 2014, we started it. We were doing about $100,000 a month. We were doing very well.
In revenue or profit?
No, in profit.
Oh, wow.
We were killing it. Yeah, we were killing it. And then a couple of companies that owned the product ended up trying to sue me. So if you type up my name on Google, you'll see like a $50 million lawsuit. The company that owns Tren. And it's funny because at that time I bought a Bentley Flying Split, right? And one of the companies was like, well, you bought the Bentley, because you're selling Sarms. And I'm like, bro, if you know my fucking history, I wouldn't need the Sarms to buy a Bentley. So that was like, but it just happened like exactly when I started the Revolt company, right? So yeah, I mean, it went on for a while, and then eventually, I started doing other things, and Sarms. I believe Sarms are great. I truly believe in them.
I'm more not on the Sarms side. I'm more thinking of the Phenibut, stuff like that. Because that stuff, like if someone wants to get high, there's a lot of molecules out there that are not being produced that are better than Phenibut, for example. Stuff like that. But moving on, I wanted to ask you also about the real estate, because this is so interesting to me. My wife is my wife is very entrepreneurial. She's awesome. She's obsessed with the real estate thing right now. She keeps researching. She's like, what is this flipping houses stuff? There's got to be money in this.
By doing it, yeah.
What's that business like? Do people go and try to flip houses and fail?
Yeah, of course.
Is it risky? Is there a lot to be... How do you learn how to save money building a house? Like when you're not a real estate guy.
All right. So I think real estate is one of the easiest things to do. I believe it's dummy proof. And I know this because I know guys that are rockheads that are multimillionaires, and Nick knows who I'm talking about. Nick knows a few guys who I'm talking about, and they're multimillionaires. I mean, literally they're worth,
retarded.
And they're 50, 60, 70, 80, $100 million. That's their net worth. And there's three guys. They're regular guys, but they're hustlers. So they look at something and they're like, oh shit, there's so much money in here that I'm going to learn this, as opposed to somebody who's so intellectual that they sit down and they overthink and they don't pull the trigger, right? So they're like, if I do this, this, and this, oh my God, what happens if I fail? These guys are like so used to taking a risk that they'll buy a house, and it'll work, and then from one house to another. So let me just go over this real quick because it's really
black and white. It's black and white.
It's so black and white. All right, so you buy a house as a distressed property, right? It could be foreclosure, REO, which is bank owned, short sale, anything that's distressed and undervalued. So you buy the house at 100. Let's give some numbers. You buy a house at 150,000. Now the ARV of the house, which is the after renovation value, ARV is 325, right? Because that's what the comparisons are on that block. So now you buy the house for 150. You buy the house for 150. It needs about $75,000 of work. So now you put $75,000 of work. So now you're at 225 all in, right? Completely all in, finished work. Now the house is worth 325. So you sell it. You make $100,000. Now, if it's a multifamily and there's apartments to rent, same process. You find the house, you renovate it, you renovate the apartments, and now you refinance that house. So you pay your $225 in, and now you get refinancing the house at $325. So now you refinance the house to a bank. You pull out the $100,000, right? $225 to $325. So you just made $100,000 and you have 2 or 3 apartments with the multifamily, and that's it.
Exactly. This is exactly what I was trying.
The problem is right now with COVID, there was a moratorium on rentals, on evictions, and a bunch of other stuff. So that's why 2020 has been a little tough. Hey Nick, by the way, they just opened up evictions in New Jersey too, so that's a good thing.
Oh, perfect. So we can get the market to open back up.
Oh, it's opening back up here. Thank God.
Yeah. I know, because I got the letters in the mail because I rent, obviously, and my landlord would have to pass the letters along saying you can't evict me. I was just like, well, I'm still gonna pay you, bro. Relax, but thanks for letting me know.
Exactly.
At least he let you know. My apartment complex don't do that.
They really didn't? No? Wow, it's fucking. My landlord's an Asian guy though. He's very thorough with everything, so everything's like by the book with him.
They didn't tell us either. But in California, you already couldn't evict people, so now it's. In California, I don't know if the listeners know, but there's something called squatters' rights.
Right. In New York, too. New York is the same way. New York is just like California. It's a tenant-friendly state.
Oh, you got squatters' rights, too?
Yeah,
We have
not New Jersey though. Jersey's
not New Jersey.
Yeah, Jersey's more conservative governed, I think, a little bit. Okay, so the thing about it though is the vertical integration. So, for example, you buy a house. Okay, now the thing about it is this: if you hire a guy to do your to do all the stuff, if you hire a guy to change the bathrooms, if you hire a guy to do this, these guys take profits, right? So the more you can vertically integrating mean the value for the listeners, the value chain of a business goes from top to bottom. People add value everywhere and they take profit. The more you own those parts, so like, for example, you own a company that does tiling or whatever, the less profit other people can get, the more you can maximize your profit from one business. But also then the less you're diversified. So you own, like, for example, you might be only on real estate then, for example, because you have a lot of businesses that do that. Do you try to vertically integrate to get those profit margins when you're flipping, for example? Or are you willing, or do you know enough about like repairing houses where when the tiling guy comes over and overcharges, you could tell him, no, that's not the price. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know enough. That's the problem. My wife doesn't know enough. If we hire these guys, they'll rip us off. We don't know what's going on.
Contractors is a very big thing because contractors could eat up into the equity of the house, right? The first 1 or 2 houses, you seem like not you seem, I know you're a very intelligent person. So you would be one. Yes, you are. You called yourself a nerd. So whoever calls themselves a nerd has enough confidence to know that they're fucking intelligent.
No, that means you try hard. A nerd is a guy who try hard. Yeah, to try.
So, you would be the type of person I would go out there. First of all, you never give anybody the credit card if you don't have enough. If you know they're not honest, so you're not going to give them a credit card or a Home Depot account to go in there and buy stuff. You're going to go with them. You're going to price everything out, and then, get 3 or 4 or 5 people to come to the house to price everything out. Yep. If it's a high, you never take the highest guy, but you also want, you also don't want to give up price for quality, for quality is important. But it depends. Also, see, we don't concentrate on multi-million-dollar houses. We don't concentrate on houses that are worth $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 because what happens is with those houses, you have to put in material in there, bathrooms, kitchens, certain things that cost a lot of money. So we concentrate on houses that are in the between the buy-wise, at least between $150,000 to $300,000, $350,000, even $400,000, depending on if it's something in New York that's vacant, we'll go a little higher because it's vacant. We don't do anything occupied in New York because New York, you cannot kick anybody out, for like a year, So New Jersey's great. Connecticut is great. Pennsylvania is great. Florida is great. Different states are.
Now, another thing to bring up with real estate is, so for the audience that doesn't know, like when you buy an apartment for $200,000, and you get a certain amount of rent that the market is willing to pay for that apartment. So what you do is you calculate that rent that you're willing to get for the year and expenses and all that. Well, not expenses, just the rent. And that's like the percent rent that you can get for a property price. So for example, in California, in LA, that's what I know. Like, for example, in Glendale, you're getting between 4% and 6%. Glendale right now is Armenian neighborhood. They just rebuilt a lot of properties. So they're new properties. So you're getting a lower percent for your investment, right? So 4 to 6% is what you're getting at in terms of rental revenues. But when you calculate this in terms of a financial investment, you also have to calculate capital appreciation because the apartment you have with real estate, we have a limited, so it's always capital appreciating. So you're not really making 4 to 6%. You're also making that capital appreciation, which sometimes you can't tell, but with comps, you can maybe estimate that every year. Now, the interesting thing is choosing where to build your properties determines not only the capital appreciation, but also the rent revenue. So if you choose to build in a city that's an upcoming city, like in Texas, for example, there's a city, I'm forgetting what the name is right now, but it's a really upcoming city. I actually think it's near Dallas. Near Dallas or
outside
in Dallas.
Arlington?
Yeah, it could be right. It could be Dallas. The rental revenues are weirdly high. They're like 12% of
right outside of Dallas is crazy right now.
Yeah, 12%, something like that, which is one of the reasons Lucy and I think are moving to Texas. But so choosing where you're going to do it is how are the rental revenues in New York as a percent of the property price?
So, all right. So instead of putting your money in the bank, right, you're better off doing the strategy you just said. You're better off buying a house. You know, the equity will always go up in a house. A house will not.
Wait. Before you continue, let's just make clear to them, why should you not put your money in the bank? The bank gives you 2 to 3% interest, and guess what? Inflation is 3%. So you're not getting, or whatever the inflation is, you're not getting anything from the bank. You're actually maybe sometimes losing money, right?
Especially if you really have a checking account, right?
Many people don't think about inflation. In finance, we have something called inflation-adjusted returns, and those returns are very small. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So because of that reason by itself is the reason why I don't have a savings account. I have a checking account. Now, you know, we have other investments. We have, Roth IRAs. We have mutual funds. You know, we have stocks that we've been involved in. So again, you know, if you have a certain amount of money and you could buy a house, you know, put your money in the house because it's going to go up. Land always goes up. Now, people say, well, what happened with the 2008 recession? Yeah, that was a big fuck up by everybody. I mean, it was just a complete incompetency of just the government and the mortgage people and anybody, you know, back then so if I made $25,000 a year and I wanted $1 million mortgage, my mortgage broker would be like, all right, I'll write you a letter and you can get $1 million mortgage, but you couldn't afford that mortgage. So you lost the house. And that's what happened everywhere at that time. But at the end of the day, you know, just like blue chip stocks, properties go up. Now, I stay away from buying a house just for rent because what I want to do is I want to buy the house. I want to fix the house. I want to refinance the house to get whatever money I can out of it. I try to focus on $75,000 to $100,000 a house to refinance out or to sell. And then I get that money. I still have the rentals. And with that money that I'm pulling out, what am I doing? I'm buying 2 more of the houses. And I'm doing the same thing. But now I have 6 doors, right? 6 apartment units. And then I'm doing the same thing, refinancing and buying 2 more houses. So now I have 8 doors, you know, and you continue. And to be honest, if you have, let's say, you know, it's not a stretch because we just went over this, right? So if you pick up 10 houses, 1 house a year, which is nothing, you know, you have 20 doors in 10 years. And that's rent that you're gonna earn for the rest of your life and the rest of your children's life. On top of that, property value goes up. So you could always refinance again when property value goes up, or let's say you get older, you want to spend all your money and go to Dubai. You know, you sell everything off, and you know, it's to be a millionaire nowadays is nothing. Like people are like, I want to be a millionaire. Well, buy 2 properties, you'll be a millionaire. Buy 3 properties, you'll be a millionaire. That's your net worth. So that's the whole point. Like I don't just buy. There's a lot of opportunity that people sell just for rent. Well, you know, it's better than having your money in the bank. But for me, I'd rather do a little bit of more work and pull out the cash to continue buying properties instead of having all my money sitting in one property and just collecting rent.
So many interesting things. The reason why people are obsessed with the word millionaire is actually because the word millionaire came out in the early 20th century. And when it first came out, millionaire was a big deal because obviously money was different back then. A millionaire back then is like a 300 millionaire or something today. So people still got stuck with that word, but that word means very little today. That's one thing. And then, you know, the other thing is like when people talk about the 2008 recession, I'm sorry this is getting a little business focused, but I think you probably...
I love this.
Okay, cool. So the thing about this is like people are like, oh, the 2008 recession, real estate is not trustworthy. Okay, first of all, that is very rare. The 2008 recession, the bubble with the real estate markets, there are bubbles with real estate markets, but if you invest in the long term, those bubbles are actually very small blips. And just like you said, it is the most safe investment you can do long term. But what many people don't know, for example, like if you invest in the index market, so for example, mutual funds, you brought up mutual funds, and I'm from a finance background. And I get bugged out with when people say like a mutual fund is making me 10% returns. And when a mutual fund manager comes to me and says, I make 10% returns, I tell them you're a failure. And the reason why I say that is because if you invest in the index funds of the US markets for 30 years straight, your average return is 20%. But what's the trick there? The mutual fund is doing something else. He's not failing anytime. So ideally, you don't lose your money any one year, ideally. But often they do lose their money. But what happens is with the index funds, some years you have crises, you have depressions, but in the long term, if you never pull out your money, you make 20%. So the thing about real estate is those dips that you see in the normal market, they're way smaller in real estate. They're way smaller. So you're much less, if you invest all your money, most of your money like I do in index funds, you can't pull out your money because there are recessions, there are depressions. With real estate, you usually can pull out your money. It's very rare that something like 2008 happens.
Warren Buffett is the perfect example of this. You buy and you hold. So his favorite holding period is forever.
Yeah, hoarding.
You know, ever, without a doubt. You know, and that's the reason why the guy, I don't know, is he worth 100 billion yet or?
Oh yeah, over on.
Yeah.
He was worth over.
Right? Yeah, so it's because he's been holding, you know, and that's what it is. Same thing with a house. Like, so a lot of people they buy stock or they buy a mutual fund. Oh, it went down. Like, I have to sell it. Why would you have to sell it if it's eventually going to go up? You know, the market is always going to go up. The same thing with property. So in 2008, when that happened in the housing market, the people that couldn't afford the mortgages were the ones that lost the house. The people that could afford the mortgages and then they get these balloon mortgages or just they didn't get a mortgage they couldn't afford. They own the house and they paid $200,000 for the house. The house went down to like 75 to 100,000, but now the house is worth $1 million.
Exactly. It's still worth more now, is it? Exactly. It's the people that over leveraged. Yeah. Exactly.
Never, ever, 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 ever live over leverage. Ever. Yeah. That's my number one rule.
That's what breaks people. People over leverage.
That's bodybuilder's number one rule.
And yeah. For the audience that doesn't know what leverage is when you go to a bank, you've got a bet, right? Your bet, say, let me explain it this way for the audience. This is where they'll get it. So like, if you're investing your own money and you're making 12% on something, then you borrow from a bank and the bank gives you a lending rate of interest. Let's say it's 5%. Now you just got free money, 5%. And the difference between 5% and 12% is all yours, except if that doesn't turn out to happen. And now you owe the bank money you don't have with that rate of interest. So you screwed yourself. Now, leverage. So where leverage works very well is in like what I used to do. I used to do government contracts with for like public utilities, for example. So I used to do electricity contract with a government. And we have a 20-year contract with the government. They're not going to mess up. They're not going to not pay. We know that's going to happen 20 years. Our rate of return was like 8%. We leveraged the hell out of it. We used to leverage 90%. 90% capital we don't have. And we get ourselves up to 18% IRR on something that has almost no risk. And there you go. That's beautiful. That's
insane.
That's what you need to do. So about Warren Buffett, though, interesting thing about that guy is he does hold forever, just like we're saying. But when I'm saying betting on the market, doing an index fund, you're basically betting on the U.S. to grow. And the U.S. you hope is going to grow. Now things are less clear with China and with, socialism and all that we may not grow in the future. This may not be the case. They may not be 20% returns over the next 30 years. But you're betting on the U.S. Warren Buffett doesn't do that. He goes and he's so rich that he can go to a company and tell them, give me your reports, a private company. Give me all your reports. I want to know everything about your company. I decided, actually, your company is great, and I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy such a controlling interest that I can tell you guys what to do. So now Warren Buffett is actually not really, people think of him as an investor. He's a true businessman. He knows how to make a business succeed. So he goes in, buys enough that he says, I'm going to make it idiot proof. You guys can't control your decisions. I'm going to do it for you. And that's how he got See's Candy or whatever candy company he has to grow so much. He owns weird stuff like candy, Geico Insurance. He made it huge, all kinds of businesses, but he just dictates what they do. Yeah. So that's about Warren Buffett. I was going to ask you also about the supplement companies. Now, exactly what you said, you can go order 100 products. What I see people doing is a minimum investment of $10,000. They ask the guy for $10,000 and he can make a supplement company. That's what I've been seeing. In terms of rental income, I just wanted you to know, Fakhri, it's pretty interesting. Like in California, it's like 4 to 6%. In Dubai, well, right now Dubai is really suffering. So now Dubai, it actually may be 6%. It was 8%. It used to be 10%. But Iran, for example, is 20%. 20% rental revenue, but because of country risk. So some people I used to know.
5 years, you make your money back.
Yeah, man. I mean, less than 5 years because of the cumulative.
That's right. Yeah. That's
Exactly. So I actually, a funny story. I rarely tell these stories on the podcast, but I used to live in London and I had a marijuana dealer who used to. He was a funny guy, man. I used to call him Rambo. He would come. He was just, his apartment had just pictures of Rambo everywhere. I eventually went. He was obsessed with Rambo. I don't know why. So this guy used to deliver 24/7. And he's like, he never sleeps. I don't know how he would do it. And he would deliver all the time. And eventually I became friends with him. And I was like, what's your deal? And he's like, I'm Iranian. And he was basically ripping off the UK government. He came to the UK as a refugee. A lot of Iranians do this. They're not actually in trouble with the Iranian government. He's Muslim, but he claimed to be Jewish or something. So he got the refugee status. So he was living in central London. I know you've ever been to London, Fakhri?
Mm-hmm.
It's really expensive. He was living right near Baker Street Station.
I know exactly where that's at.
With an apartment with 3 bedrooms, he was not paying anything. Zero.
No?
Zero.
Oh.
And I went to his apartment. I'm like, what, the Rambo and all this 3 up 3? I was like, who do you live with? He's like, nobody. These stupid British people are paying for it. So he was like making fun of the government. He was ripping them off, and he was dealing. So eventually, I asked him like, why you work so hard? You don't smoke. He doesn't use drugs. He doesn't smoke cigarettes. And he was like judging me. He's like, I don't even smoke cigarettes. You're using marijuana. I don't know what. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I send all the money back to Iran. My family has bought 3 buildings with this money, and I get 20%. And he was asking me, can you invest? I was like, no, I'm not investing with you. I don't trust you, but you're in Iran, I can't go to Iran. But so they make a lot of money. Anyway.
20%, wow.
Another thing I wanted to ask you is, in terms of partners, how do you judge? You mentioned like your business is failing because of partners. You mentioned differences of opinions. So that's one thing. Me and Nick actually had a difference of opinion last night, and this morning I want to destroy somebody, and Nick was trying to stop me from destroying him.
Wait, hold on.
No, we'll talk about it.
Destroy somebody? I don't believe this at all.
We have to give backstory to this story.
Nick is.
Oh my God.
Look, yeah, it's a funny story. We got to tell you some other time. But the point is, I'm trying.
So as soon as we're done here recording, I'm going to tell him the story, so you can cut that out.
So we have differences of opinion. But the point is, I was going to ask you, how do you choose a good business partner in terms of ethics and in terms of intelligence and in terms of avoiding these differences of opinion that can ruin the business? Well, no, not that Nick, you're not one of those. But I'm just saying. No, this isn't going to ruin the business. It's just emotional.
I know.
I am a very loyal person. I've always tried to help my friends, start a business. I've always helped my friends be involved in a business. I've always helped my friends work with me in a business. And that's not even family, man. That's not the way you do it. You need to hire the smartest people. You need to get involved with the smartest people. You need smart partners. You cannot be the Superman to everybody and everybody look up to you, and you're the one to have to, everybody looks up to you, and whatever goes wrong, they can't help you, and that's not a business partner, right? No. So a lot of the businesses I've had, and I've had a lot of businesses, and and that's usually the problem. I'm not saying, I'm not saying they failed because of them. At the end of the day, you have to take responsibility for your own business. Whether you're a partner or not, you're the one who's taking responsibility for it. So now, the great thing about real estate is, it's not something that somebody like I take on partners, and so what I do equity deals too. It's not just buying and flipping. So when an investor needs to get money to do a deal, I put in half of the equity, right? So I'll take in like 51% lien on the house. So the house is really leaned under my corporation, and I put in half the money. So when we sell the house, it's 50-50 to the investor. So that's where I'm leaning towards now, and that's how I created the idea of the private lending fund. But yeah, you gotta to have a partner, man. You have to not just trust them, but you have to, you don't have to like each other either. There's a lot of partners that don't like each other, but they make a whole hell of a lot of money. It's just you have to be smart and have the person who understands the business that you guys are going to go into 100%, and not be, oh my God, I'm starting a business. You know, it has to be something that's smart and well thought of.
Practice that.
I mean, yeah, you bring up some good points. Like, I know some people with family businesses, and they literally, I mean, the first generation might work, but the second generation is literally differences of opinions, but they can't outvote each other. And one guy actually has a good idea, the other one doesn't, and the other one's going to ruin the family business if the majority side with that. You know, I hesitate bringing this up, but like the most famous like partner breakup in bodybuilding was the Aaron Singerman PJ Braun one, which I know as Nick's close friend PJ Braun.
Hey, I was friends with Aaron for when he was at RX Muscle, and honestly, I really don't have a problem with Aaron besides the fact the way he handled the whole Dallas situation. That was the only thing that rubbed me the wrong way. And I think he does bring a lot of good things to bodybuilding as far as, because there's not many companies out there still sponsoring athletes or even helping anybody. So, and he's one of the few still doing that because he has the money to be able to do that. And he does have true passion for bodybuilding, hence his career with Dave Palumbo at RX Muscle for how many years that was. And he covered bodybuilding shows and he loved it. But the whole Dallas thing is what really rubbed me the wrong way. And that's what caused us to have a fight. Because before that, every party at the Arnold or the Olympia, I was with Aaron and his fucking friends and everyone else and PJ. And Fakhri knows, like, you know, that Dallas thing really hurt me. And that was like that was the breaking point for me. When I saw that, the way it went down and how it was handled and everything, it just, I can't, like, you know, just forget about something like that. You know,
before we get into Dallas, were PJ and Aaron good friends? Like you said, you hang out with them and their buddies. They were
because PJ was with Dave Palumbo as well. So I
didn't know PJ was with Dave. How was he with Dave?
Well, as a coach, and also they were very close friends. So they were also very close over the years. And Aaron was PJ's best friend growing up, basically. So
Aaron grew up with PJ.
Well, they in the bodybuilding industry,
yeah.
They were like, you know.
So what I wanted to ask about Aaron. So my understanding is that, and obviously you're totally right. Aaron is like a big force in bodybuilding and for positive because he sponsors athletes with real. I think Luke had like a proper sponsorship, like
they all money and stuff. They make good money.
Yeah, they were given. So definitely we give props to Aaron, and this is not in any way bashing Aaron or negative or anything like that.
No, not at all.
But I just wanted to ask for my own sake. I used to watch RX Muscle when it started, 2008, whenever. I've been following Dave since 2003. So I saw Aaron was like with Dave, and I thought he was an intern. Was he an intern? Because I thought he was an intern, but for years. For like years. What I mean to say is that I think he wasn't being paid.
There was things he was able to monetize with Dave. I mean, I think it wasn't like a straight paycheck. I think there was things he did with Dave that he made money with, if you know what I'm saying.
But he wasn't paying for himself.
I don't think he was on a payroll. No, especially not then, because
what I mean to say is I think that Aaron is a descendant of a rich family that has a lot. No?
I don't know.
I know his wife. I know his wife's family.
Okay.
That's
I was wondering how his company was. Who invested in it? It's huge.
Oh, Redcon, or are you talking about Blackstone?
Redcon. The original company and Redcon.
Well, Blackstone. That was PJ's plant. That was PJ's company because they had the pro hormones first. If you remember.
Oh, really?
That made a lot. Yeah. That made them a shitload of money to start everything else.
That funneled the entire Blackstone project was the pro hormones they made, and that was PJ's company that he brought Aaron on into and was like, "Hey, come do this with me in my office in my house," and that's how it started.
Oh, really?
And that's what funneled the entire Blackstone project from birth. Was the pro hormones that they were selling.
What about Redcon? Is it from Blackstone?
So when they split, Aaron took his cash out and his money, and Aaron's a swindler. He had business partners and investors already lined up for that. So that was already, and I'm not sure who they are. I think they're in the dark, but now he brought in Eric Hart, I think his name is, now is a big percentage owner of the company too. So
Aaron's smart. He's a smart business.
Yeah. He gets what he wants.
I was totally.
That's well said.
For some reason, I thought that Aaron was actually like his dad was a billionaire or something.
Oh no.
So that's just muscular development like that. The guy from Muscular Development is
Blackman.
Blackman's dad's
his dad was the one that created Twin Lab.
Yeah, Twin
His
Lab.
dad created Twin Lab?
Yeah, so the twin lab.
Twin brothers, yeah.
Yeah, so Steve Blackman has a twin brother, and that's how the name Twin Lab.
Yeah.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah.
So Blackman started Twin Lab.
Yes.
So
No, Blackman's father.
No, the father, and then they based it off the brothers, and then Steve.
So Blackman grew up with bodybuilding.
Oh yeah.
I had no idea. I thought he was just some rich guy that loves bodybuilding, and he got into, because Dave always paints it like he's like gay and he's into.
Dave is. I don't know why Dave's. Listen, I think it's funny what Dave does with him, but like,
I thought he was a gay guy that's dad's rich and he decided to play with it. I swear, that's what I thought the whole time. It's been years I've been thinking this, by the way.
Listen, I like Steve actually. I was with him too as an athlete, just like Fakhri was, and
he was a good guy.
Yeah, and his son Jordan. I was friends with.
At least he was a good guy to me.
No, I just got this idea because of the Dave.
I mean, no, that's what Dave. That's what Dave did, though. He painted. Everyone thinks that, though. Everybody that doesn't know the story thinks that. And now, listen, I could tell you some funny stories about Steve Blackman, but that's a whole other thing. But like, his son Jordan's a good guy too. Jordan was like the photographer for them, videographer for them. There was a lot of good that came from Steve's contacts. He knew a lot of people,
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Steve.
But Dave does. Well, Dave used to work for him. That's where it all started.
Yeah.
And then Dave started RX Muscle when he was still at MD. And what's his name ratted on him?
Lee Priest. Oh, no. Sorry. I meant Shawn Ray.
Shawn Ray ratted on Dave, saying that Dave started this new media company. You got to fire him. Dave got fired, and then Shawn Ray took over, and then Dave started RX Muscle.
Fucking Hollywood, bro. Hollywood, bro. Hollywood, Shawn Ray.
That's
Hollywood, bro.
Hey, I didn't know that.
Go on, take off your glasses when you talk to people.
Did you see the Shawn Ray interview with Jake Wood where Jake Wood just roasted him for 30 minutes?
Yeah.
On the Digital Muscle channel? Fucking hilarious.
Wait, so I had no idea that. Okay, so Dave started RX as being part of Muscular Development, or
no? He was doing it. He was doing it as he was still employed as an employee at Muscular Development, because he was doing all the media for MD.
So it's not okay. I thought it was a pure.
And that's why Dave's salty about Steve.
No, I know he's salty about Steve because of that, but I didn't know he started his own thing. So there was a legitimate reason to
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought Shawn Ray was just like
Dave was like the nucleus of MD at the time. He was the contest coverage. He was the media outlet. That's how he was so well versed when he just went right to RX Muscle. He already knew what to fucking do, And then Aaron went with him.
Aaron was at MD originally.
He was doing a coverage for them on the forums and everything, kind of like a Ron Harris is right now at MD. He was like that.
By the way, who is Ron Harris? I watch his stuff sometimes. I find him very amusing.
He's been with Blackman since birth, I feel like. I think he's been there forever. And he's just loyal to...
He's very loyal, yeah.
I mean, he's just a real good guy from Massachusetts. I mean, like, you can't...
He really is.
Yeah.
He's really... The guy's never been mean to anybody, and he's just so like grateful for anything. And he's been loyal to Steve. He'd never left Steve, no matter what they went through or what trials and tribulations they had. He's been there since day one. So
he's a good guy.
Huh? Okay, he loves bodybuilding too, man, which is a great thing.
Very passionate about it.
We skipped over the main thing that you said, which was the Dallas thing. So I was curious, what did you mean by like? So my impression as not knowing bodybuilding was that Dallas was sponsored by Aaron, and that Dallas, by the way, from my perspective, being really into genetics and stuff like that, especially for cardiovascular disease, I think that Dallas was an ApoE4 carrier, as well as he may have had some other genes that are very at play. But ApoE4 carriers really quickly develop atherosclerosis, which is the plaque in the arteries, really quickly. I mean, because his autopsy said he had severe atherosclerosis. I mean, just compare that to Rich Piana, for example. He was 50, atherosclerosis.
Nothing. Yeah, nothing.
He's fine. So I think it was ApoE4, but it could have been other things genetically. But so he died, but he didn't even die from that. He died from something. I don't know what he died from. He had a heart attack that day, but it wasn't from plaque. So what's did you think that Aaron should have like taken care of his family more, or?
So, and I'll try to keep this as short as possible, just so it's not boring to the listener. But so when he immediately passed away, obviously I wasn't mad at Aaron. That wasn't the case. But the next day is when the anger started to brew, because they made T-shirts and made a video with his ex-girlfriend, and they were selling them. And I looked into where the money was going. It was supposed to be going into a fund for Dallas's family, and it was in Aaron Singerman's name. And Aaron swore up in
corporation,
and he swore that it was going to Dallas family. But I said, yeah, but it's in your name. If you're setting up a fund for a family, it's supposed to go into the family's name and what, the mother, the father, whoever. I'm like, how are they going to know how much money they made? They don't have control over this money. Are you taking a percentage out for the shirts? Like, what the fuck's going on? This was Dallas is a very close friend of mine. So, and no one was standing up for Dallas. Everyone was just like, oh, wow, Aaron's so nice. And I was like, yeah, he is. But hold on a second. Aaron's a businessman. And actually, I don't think it was even the next day when I rethink it, if I'm clear. I think it was the day of. They made a video that night saying they have T-shirts made already for Dallas's death. And they're selling them to give to Dallas's family. And I was like, whoa, this is too fast, dude. Like, maybe a week from now, no problem, go sell T-shirts even, like the day of, with Redcon on them. It wasn't just Dallas. It was Redcon 1 Dallas McCarver T-shirts.
Yeah, I seen those shirts.
And he was offering a fucking coupon code with Dallas's death. It was Dallas 20 or whatever the fuck it was that day. So you're giving discount to incentivize people to use Dallas's code when he's dead. Like, there's all those things to me just was like, I don't care who you are, you're a piece of shit. So that just, and listen, that was as fucking as weird as this is, you bring this up, that was the reason I got back into bodybuilding that day, because I was at work selling cars. I was wholesaling cars, and I made a video at my desk on my fucking iMac camera in my office at the car place. And I made a video talking about this. I was like, this is bullshit. Like, what happened to our sport? And like, that was my first video, and that video got a ton of views. Like, oh, where have you been? I've been out of the sport for like 2 years at that point. I was in it, but I wasn't. I was still helping people out, but I wasn't full-time bodybuilder anymore. And that was like one of the main reasons I quit that job. I was like, I have to go back to the sport and kind of like spread good awareness again. I'm like, the sport's falling apart. In my mind, that was my why I went back into it. But so that happened with Aaron, and then I come to find out, Dallas lived like, he's a real hillbilly. I mean, he's a Southern boy, and very family oriented, just a wholesome kid. And he had this group of friends that I was very close to over the years that I became friends with. And they were like his boys, like his from high school sports, everything. His best friend, Will, who I'm still friends with every day. I talk to that kid. And Aaron moved him to Florida to be closer to them, which then I think led to the depression, which led to the whatever happened to him in that house that day. And he took him away from everything that kid was in love with and familiar with, and did it with money and incentivizing him, which is fine from a business standpoint. But then when he died, that's what made it bad, because then I saw all the ugly things that were going on behind the scenes for Dallas to keep him there. Buy him a car, buy him an apartment, furnish his place, give him more money to stay here, just do more drugs and stay in our gym and train all day. Like, do this, do that. And it became a full-time bodybuilder, which Dallas didn't like. Dallas liked being bodybuilder, but not like balls deep into a business where it wasn't even his. He was bored every day. He was losing his mind because he had no friends. He didn't have a circle of family with him. And all he did was just wake up and lift. Before, he had things to do, He had a job, he had his friends, he did things. Then he was just sitting home all day and literally rotting away. So I think the bodybuilding pressure got to him because he had that, remember when he passed out on stage from pneumonia in Australia, I think that was, or whatever. And that's when people started to blame Chad for his death. And I'm not going to bring up the other kid's name he used to work with, but there was a whole other slew of things that led to that.
Yeah. Wait. About the other kid that he used to work with, I don't know his name, so that's fine. But I know what you're talking about. He's still working with somebody that's
now this is funny.
Somebody that looks really like that.
I was going to lead to that because this is exactly what they're doing to him now. So
is that guy sponsored by the same company too?
No, but it's Matt's company now. So they're doing what they did to Dallas.
Because
they flew him to Florida now too. Now he's in Florida doing the same thing that Dallas did, and he was the same.
He is in Florida.
Yeah, and now a full-time bodybuilder. They gave him an apartment. They gave him a car. They incentivized him to be there, to be their poster boy of a juice gorilla for the fucking company. And that was and there's a lot of things I'm not going to share on here about Dallas's personal life that happened. And that's why I'm so angry, because
I'm sensing there's something there.
There's a lot of things there that could have possibly led to him, whatever happened to him. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I'm sensing it.
And I know,
sense it too.
And I know that it was way beyond just bodybuilding that was killing him, you know, mentally and physically. And that's where I saw like the devil of Aaron coming out, because he just saw money signs with Dallas. And he was literally, when he brought Dallas there, whatever was going on at Redcon was not going on when Dallas was not there. You know what I'm saying? And when Dallas came there, it was a whole nother story. Like, things changed for them. You know, that kid was a superstar in the making. And now props to Aaron seeing that opportunity, but there's a way to go. There's eventually a human life at stake here. You know, this is not, we're not playing bowling or ping pong. We're bodybuilding, and there's a lot of psychiatric things going on too. And the kid had no life, you know? And the first sign of it was that show when he collapsed from pneumonia and he was sick and he didn't take the time off. Yeah. And he was pushed harder at that point. It wasn't like they took the brakes off and said, oh, go get your health fix, takes the next year off. It was like, oh, you got to go to this show. You got to go to this expo. You got to do this appearance. The kid never stopped. So
I want to just mention something for the audience that are bodybuilders that are listening and don't want to die like Dallas. There's 2 things you can do that are very simple. Go to 23andMe, get your genetics tested, and have somebody that knows. No, 23andMe won't tell you. Have somebody that knows the cardiovascular genes, which you can get on Google Scholar yourself, or have somebody and check your ApoE4 and your LDL receptor, your CTEP gene, your Apoc3 gene, and there's a bunch of other genes as well. Check them. Next thing you do is very simple. Even if you don't want to check your genes, a cardiac FMRI. That's what you need. It's not an echocardiogram like and it's not a CAC score like these idiots keep getting. A CAC score tells you if you had cardiovascular disease 15 years ago and it healed. You need a cardiac FMRI. It'll tell you if you have blockages, and it'll tell you if your heart's not operating at full capacity. So you'll know beforehand. If you do that once a year, you will. Is that the same
calcium deposit test?
The calcium deposit test, why I'm not talking about that is because calcium gets deposited 10 to 15 years after the plaques start. So if you have a calcium score, it means that 10 years ago, you had plaque and it has healed. It could be a good thing. It could be a good thing if it's lower. Basically, if you're below the age of 40, you should have a 0 CAC score. If you have any score, it means something. You don't have to get that tested more than once because it is extremely damaging to the cardiovascular system. The CAT score itself is very strong radiation. It's the strongest radiation you can get, stronger than an X-ray, and it goes directly to your heart and directly to the cardiovascular system, which causes mutations in the DNA there. You don't want to do it every year. No respectable cardiologist will do it more than once in a 3-year period because it doesn't change that much. What matters is the cardiac FMRI. That'll tell you if you have plaque there. And it'll tell you if you have plaque. If you can do that every year, it doesn't damage you at all. You could do it every 6 months. You can see if the plaque, if the blood is flowing better or worse. And that's what you need. It costs money is the problem. You need insurance for it. So what do? You get insurance, then you go to your cardiologist, a new one that doesn't know you, and you say, both of my parents died below the age of 45 from cardiovascular disease. And it's all across my family, and I have a ApoE4 variant. I need you to check I need you to do a cardiac FMRI. Once you say that the history, the family history, then the guy can get it passed through insurance. Insurance won't check. And you'll get it because it costs a lot of money. The machine costs millions, it's very expensive machine. I just want to tell you guys that. So people, and another thing is that no bodybuilder will experience that much of a decrease in his actual ability to build muscle from taking a statin. But statins will lower heart disease. Statins are the only medication. But there are actually, if you don't want a statin, which could cause muscle weakness, there's something called the PCSK9 inhibitor. It just got approved 3 years ago. PCSK9 inhibitor. The drug is called Repatha. There's a second drug also. The problem is you can only get insurance to cover it if your total cholesterol is over 300. which means that you qualify for familial hypercholesterolemia. How do you get your total cholesterol over 300? Go on a cycle, whatever, and then go to the doctor. I have, or you could say, or you could even, no, that's what you need to do. You need to go to the doctor, mess up your cholesterol, have it over 300, show it to him. Insurance will approve it. And now you have a $5,000 drug a year because it's new, so it's expensive. And that drug doesn't cause muscle weakness. And that drug dramatically reduces cholesterol in the bloodstream. How does cholesterol get deposited in the arteries? By the way, 2 ways. You either have a lot of cholesterol in the bloodstream or you have a lot of inflammation. Like you smoke cigarettes, you take steroids, inflammation. Or you're stressed, inflammation. So you could lower your inflammation, but you could also just lower the cholesterol particles in the blood, and you're not going to develop that plaque at a greater rate. And by the way, if you can't afford a PCSK9 inhibitor, there's a drug you can easily afford from alldaychemist.com. You can even order it if you want to. If it's legal in your country, it's called ezetimibe or Zetia. Zetia prevents your body from digesting dietary cholesterol, which means you can eat as many eggs as you want and it's not going to affect your cholesterol that much. But it also means what it also does is prevent your liver from pulling out cholesterol from your bile fluids. So these two mechanisms will reduce your cholesterol by about 15% with no side effect. I mean, you're going to see nothing. And the nice side effect of statins that not many people know about, they make your erections way stronger. It's totally different than Cialis. It's the combination is great, actually. you get some erections that you can hang towels off of. It'll be great for you.
There's no cholesterol, so the blood flow goes straight through.
Yeah.
It's pure vasodilation right there.
We don't know the real reason, but I just want to mention that in case it does save any lives. So the other thing I want to ask you, Fuad, for new bodybuilders, how would you advise someone to approach the business of bodybuilding, being a person that has a hustler mindset naturally and going through it yourself? And now you're not in the business of bodybuilding as much. So how would you approach it for a young guy? And would you tell him eventually he needs to diversify? What would you say?
So I've always, and Nick could attest to this, I've always talked about your future, your financial future and everything else. Bodybuilding is great, but it's a sport. And I love it. I fucking love it. I still do it to this day. I haven't taken gear since May 2018. I look like I don't take gear. It's not like some of these fucking full of shit people. Yeah, I don't take no gear, but they still look as good as when they were taking gear. Like I'll take a testosterone test any day and put up 100 grand. Let's do it. I used to accuse Nick of that for quite a while.
The first message I sent Nick ever was, "Hey, I see you're finally off gear." Anyway.
Nah, Nick, if Nick was on gear, he'd be 300 pounds again. That man got
300. He was still. It wasn't fat.
I was a 350 fat though. It wasn't a 350.
Anyway,
so much respect, bro. That's an insane transformation in less than a year, bro.
Oh, thank you.
I tell everybody that transformation, they don't even believe it. I'm like, I show them pictures. I'm like, look at my boy. He was 350, now he's 250.
But you're saying your advice, and you stopped taking steroids now. I don't know how.
Yeah, I stopped because I was 44 years old, so it was like, what am I doing? Like, where am I going to go with this? So, and I hadn't competed in years. So my advice is always, even to bodybuild, you have to have some type of financial income. You have to have some type of security, because if not, bodybuilding is stressful. It costs a shitload of money. You cannot do bodybuilding on a budget. You cannot you just can't. You have to spend your money and to spend $2,000 or $3,000 a month, $4,000 a month with food and everything else, that costs money. So what I tell everybody is, you have to have some type of hustle. Now, the thing is, the first thing everybody thinks about is becoming a coach. Now, when I started coaching, you can make a lot of money coaching. Yeah. I've made upwards of $500,000 a year for like 4 years in a row. I'm still up there, not 500,000, but you're still making a lot of money. But there's so many coaches that you're not gonna get on the Mount Rushmore on a top level like Nick, that could just pick on 50 clients if he wants to. So it's kind of tough to start from nowhere to start coaching. Now, if you want to make $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month, and not work, then yeah, you could do that to support your bodybuilding. But what do you do to secure your future? So. And there's no more sports supplement sponsorships. There's no more magazine deals. So forget about that. So it's hard, man. It's a hard sport to like really, to really survive financially. I mean, to get a job, full-time job and bodybuild, is it possible? Yeah, it's possible, but it's hard to sell. So it's tough, man. It's a sacrifice that you're sacrificing. But here's what happens. So, all right, so you get ready for a show, right? So you need an off-season, then you need a pre-contest, then you do the show. So that's already, 6 months out of the year. And then right after that show, you're like, fuck it, I'm going to do another show. So that's another 3 months. Or you go, okay, now I got to start an off-season. So off-season, pre-contest, off-season, pre-contest, off-season. So after like 10 years, like, shit, what have I done in the last 10 years? Yeah. Me and Nick talk a lot about people that, they are good bodybuilders, but, what's their future going to be like? And we're good people. So, we do talk shit and we do laugh a lot about things. But at the end of the day, like, we care about like what's going to happen to some of these people. And some of them are friends and some of them are douchebags. But still, you have to worry about, helping them. And it's tough, man. Like, I cannot give you a plan right now to be financially set in bodybuilding because coaching is oversaturated, supplements are oversaturated. Now, I'm not going to tell you 1 out of 100 might make it, but what happens to the other 99? That's the problem. Yeah. And then, do you really want to be 50 years old and being a personal trainer? That's not cool. It's like what Biggie said. Being 30 and broke gives the niggas a chills. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same concept. Like, it's a hard sport. And even if you look at some of the great bodybuilders in the world now, or some of the GOATs that we had in the 90s and 80s and 70s, what has happened to them financially? They're not doing well at all.
No. Listen, Fakhri knows. Fakhri coached me at a very young age and saw how bad I wanted to be successful in bodybuilding. But I always said to him, I always asked him, like, what do I do after? I just kept asking him, like, what should I do? And I would always ask him after shows. I would get this depression. And I'm like, I just spent all my fucking money on this show. And I'm like, what the fuck do I do now? Like, I just go back to doing this vicious cycle again. And he'd always be like, you got a plan. You got to do this. You got to do that. And we'd have these conversations all the time because I was always like, yeah, but what's the end result? And he's like, well, you got to do what you want. I'm like, yeah, but being broke and doing this forever ain't what I fucking want, But guys don't snap out of that, Leo. They stay in that grind forever and they make minimal money just to do minimal things with their life. They never get out of that vicious cycle. And they're not honestly just not smart enough. They just don't want, it's not that they don't want to. They're really not that smart. I mean, fortunately, there's very few guys that can build a brand or build something for themselves out of their career. I mean, you see how many there are. There's not many, there's a handful out of everybody,
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting topic because Fuad, who I bring up often on the channel, he actually made a video a few weeks ago about the business of bodybuilding, which I actually found to be a really...
Yeah, that was a good video.
I thought it was a great video being a non-bodybuilder, but now that I think about it with what you're saying, Fakhri, in terms of the coaching market being oversaturated, think of it this way. Basically, his video was about how to monetize your brand. Yeah. But what if your brand isn't that desired? I mean, there's only so many brands that people want. Basically, that video only works if you're a top guy.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to... And when you talk about the supplement market being oversaturated, I mean, there's Jay Cutler's supplement. I mean, how many supplements can you buy? There's only a few bodybuilders. Like, you can't buy...
You know what the secret is? And like Faoud's capitalizing on now, he has his way with the fans. So like he knew that he could capitalize on bringing on special guests, like when he had Luke, rest in peace. He brings on Ben. He brings on all these characters that. Remember we were talking about this, Leo?
Well, it's sort of how Dave. That's Dave's.
Well, yeah, it makes people. It makes people feel like they're friends with him. Like he brings that family feel, that friends feel with the way they talk about personal things. They make fun of themselves. They're very. They put their guard down. You see a different light of their personality instead of just the meathead thing all the time. And that's what he brought to the table, and he capitalized on it now with his brand. And you know how it is, Fakhri, with these people. Some people are like, how the fuck is that guy making money? And he's selling 3 million proteins a year. But it's because he's got a loyal following. It's not because he's a businessman. And maybe his margins are very small, but he's still selling God knows how many protein jugs. I'm not saying, whoever we're talking about, it's just in general. But it's crazy what you can do with YouTube. If you have this niche. Like, you know, Faoud's kind of etched out for himself. Greg Duchette's out for himself. Dave's etched out for himself.
I mean, but for every one of those, okay, this is not.
Absolutely. But there's also levels to it, though. Like some guys are happy with making $100K.
No. But for every one of those, like there's Jerry Ward, for example, who's been on my podcast before. Right. Jerry Ward is a guy who had basically YouTube fame, and he's a bodybuilder as well. I mean, his supplement company is not doing well at all, and he had a huge following. I mean, he used to get before Rich Piana, he used to get tons of views. There's a life cycle to these YouTubers, I've noticed. Yeah, there's a life cycle. But so you're totally right. There is a unique strategy there. That's true.
You also have to have some business sense. It's not just having 500,000 followers and I'm going to sell, protein, pre-workout, and a fat burner. It doesn't work that way.
No.
Savvy. Like you have to be able to. You can't be scared to contact people and talk to them. You can't be, oh shit, like I got to eat 7 meals a day. How the hell am I going to travel the country visiting all my vendors? No, it's true, and those are the things that stop.
It's so fucking true. It's so true.
Oh man, I got a meal prep. How am I gonna make these 25 phone calls today? Yeah, and that's
those priorities go out the window.
No, there is no priorities. Yeah, and Nick is right when he said this earlier. It's a vicious cycle that just doesn't stop. And I've been doing this for 30 years. I've been in the sport for 30 years. And I've seen the guys that came before me. I saw the guys that came with me. I saw the guys that came after me, and I saw the guys that came after them. I'm like Mumra. I've lived forever. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen all this stuff, and that's the reason why I have. Not the education isn't the right word, but it's the knowledge of what happens and why does these things happen. And me being OCD and being nerdish, I've always analyzed everything. And at a very early age, I knew bodybuilding wasn't going to pay my bills, even though I was making money. I was making money from magazines, supplements, appearances, not too many guest poses, but I did a few guest poses. But seminars, I would travel, I've been to 5 continents traveling to do seminars, but that opportunity is not there anymore. Unless you're Mr. Olympia or top 5. And how many people get to be top 5 in Olympia? Top 3?
You bring up the coaching, you earning $500,000 from coaching. I wanted to ask you in terms of coaching prices. I see I think it's a wide range, but maybe I'm confused. So what I see is, I guess contest prep. There are some guys that have 3,000. Amin Alive, for example, 6,000. And Greg Doucette, 30,000, 40,000. I don't know how much. But what I'm trying to say is there a range of prices? And Fakhri, in your experience, what is the optimal range for a bodybuilder who wants to earn money? I'm not talking about for myself or I do weird kind of coaching, but a bodybuilder who wants to coach bodybuilders. What is the best price range to maximize his money?
Well, here's my thing. If you're charging $30,000 to do contest prep, you're only contest prepping rich people. So if you get 10 rich people, then you can make that's
different.
Yeah, that's a whole different level, man. And I don't believe.
No, but even the 6,000, it's mostly rich people. It's mostly
Yeah, I mean, do you have $6,000 to throw out a contest prep? I mean, if you don't have a job and making other money, so I'll give you an example. It's when I started contest prepping, my initial first month payment was $1,000. That was the initial first month payment, and then after that, it was $300 every single month. And if you add that by 200 people, 250, not everybody stays all year long, but that's what adds up the money. But and this, I was going to make a video about this. If everybody was smart enough to all come together and agree that there is a base price, right? Let's all keep this price. Let's not go from $350 to $150. So the reason why how people try to beat each other is by lowering the price. When you lower the price, you lower your brand. You lower your status. And then people want to pay less and less and less. If you could do some type of price control within all the coaches, which is impossible because this is a narcissistic sport.
It's also illegal, technically, in the U.S. But anyway, don't worry about it.
To do what? To do a price thing, or?
Yeah, like Coke. You know how Coke and Pepsi, they all charge $1. They do it. Yeah. They do it only because there's no trace where they ever talked about it. But if they ever talked about it, it would be illegal and there would be price fixing.
Leo's going into the Rockefeller laws now.
Anyway, so you're right.
Yeah, but that's what happens. So like a lot of people charging 125, 150, and now they got to carry a whole shitload of clients. But I mean, prices is to the individual where they can make money. But I wish there was some type of price control, some type of agreement,
So that's how coaches end up with tons of clients, is they lower their prices and a lot of people sign. But then how do you manage 250 clients? I don't get it. I can't even manage the clients I have. Like yesterday, this incident happened with Nick. We had a little some guy attack. So we had a little incident last night that threw off my whole night. I didn't respond to any clients. I'm like, oh my God, I have so much work to do today.
Yeah.
And
Fakhri didn't sleep though.
Yeah, like Nick just said it right now. I was about to say Nick could attest to this. I went after I lost all my money, or was taken from me, whatever, lost. I went 10 years working 80 to 100 hours a week. So what would happen was I would wake up in the morning, I'll do some contest prep, then I would go to my store. And then when I got to my store, I had like a doctor's line of chairs inside my supplement store people waiting to see me. I would see everybody, then I would do the rest of the client work at nighttime at the store. I would come home, eat, go to the gym, and then I would do the rest of the client work until like 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I said like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, what happens? The next day, the clients start sending in the emails. So when people say, I don't have enough time, I don't want to work, 40 hours a week is too much, get the fuck out of here. Like, if you really want to work and you want to make money, you have to make massive sacrifices. And that's what I had to do because I had zero money. I had nothing. So I had to sacrifice.
When we do shows together, Leo, I would go to bed at like, let's say midnight or whatever for the show. And Fakhri's like, all right, wake me up at 5 and we'll fill you out for the morning for prejudging. And I would knock on his door because his room be next to me. He would answer in like 2 seconds. And I'm like, wait, how the fuck did you get to bed? Like, he's like, oh, I didn't go to bed yet. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, dude?
Are you serious? Wow.
No, I had to, but Leo, I had to. I had no choice. What am I going to do? I'm going to be broke again, or am I going to, stay up working? I had no choice.
Wow, this falls in line with Nick's other podcast. The title of it was it called? What's it called? The other podcast.
Oh, A Hustler's Mindset. I'm doing that with Adam.
That's for sure. That's a hustler's mindset. That's for sure. Okay, one last thing about the bodybuilders. You said it's possible to have a full-time job. Is it really? Or is it possible to be a good bodybuilder with a full-time job? I mean, Ronnie did it, but Ronnie is a gift of nature. So you think it's possible?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that have a full-time job. Not everybody doesn't work in bodybuilding. I mean, there's a lot of people. Eventually, the goal is to make some type of passive income through coaching, mostly through coaching, right? Because everybody, my clients are coaches. You know what I'm saying? So like, coaching is like the main way out for everybody. But at the end of the day, it's like, how much money are you gonna really make from coaching these days? If you make $100,000, that's a lot of money, But you have to do something with that money. You have to invest it. And yeah, I think it is possible. Ronnie did it. A lot of my bikini girls are nurses and work. And, I have clients that are firemen. I have clients that are police officers. I mean, Nick will tell you it's very difficult, but it's possible. When there's a will, there's a way, and when you have that passion makes you do whatever you need to do to succeed.
Are male clients easier to deal with than female clients?
No. They cry more.
Really? Female clients are easier?
Absolutely, man. Females might want to talk more and write longer emails, but you tell a female to do something, she's going to do it. Guys are like, oh my God, I'm hungry. My bench press went down from 315 to 305. It's just, they complain more, man.
It's more of an argument to get him to do it.
It's not even like an argument. I'm like, here, Leo, I fire so many people per year. I fire like 30 clients per year. I'll return their money. I've been with you for 2 months, so return my money. I'm like, I'm going to give you 3 months. Here, take it back. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't want to deal with people.
People are nuts.
I just returned the guy's money before he even started.
Oh, I have done the same thing many times.
He emailed me.
All the time. That happens all the time.
He was like, no, this was a little bit annoying. I want to mention. He was like, so he has an issue. Obviously, I deal with, most of my clients have psychological things they're working on. So he has, his is not psychological. It's a sexual issue. So he messaged me. He's like, are you sure this can be fixed? I was like, completely sure. Don't worry, brother. Like a long, because I know he's anxious and stuff. He was sending a, literally his response was like, okay, brother, but are you sure it can be fixed? And I was like, yes, I replied that time. Then another third email. This time I didn't reply. I thought maybe he's having a bad night. Then he paid for the stuff and sent in his form. He still had not sent in his form. Then I accepted it. Then he said, are you sure this can be solved? I said, no, I'm still returning your money back. I'm sorry. I don't have time for this. So anyway, so, okay, the final thing, Fakhri, before I get into some quick questions, I wanted to ask you, I saw you on RX Muscle I think it was a couple of years ago, where you were having some issues with filtration rates of your kidneys. I wanted to know how you're doing. I hope things are doing better. I hope it was more of an acute issue.
Yeah, so what happened was my blood pressure was always high. It was high for forever. Like my blood pressure runs high in my family. I started having, my creatine was around, my creatinine level was around 2 as early as 2001. Now, I'm 5'5". I was walking around.
2001, your creatinine was 2?
Was at 2. So and I had just started gear in 2000. So I have a high creatinine level to begin with. It was always like 1.3, 1.2 regardless. So that was my normal baseline. And I have a top, I have Colombian Presbyterian, there's a doctor named Dr. Cruz. He's like one of the top nephrologists in the whole country. Colombian Presbyterian is like the number 4 hospital in the whole country. So, being so big and having so much muscle mass and everything else, and just genetical, that was 2.2 was my baseline. And I carried that baseline until December 2017. And then they came back at 4. And when I came back from Florida, because I lived in Florida for 2 years, I was planning to do a show, and that was the biggest I've ever been. I was 44 years old. I was like 275, and I was hard as a rock. I was going to go on stage and just destroy people. I know because of the way I look, and then when it came back at 4, I kept prepping and prepping and prepping. Then it got worse.
You kept prepping after 4? Okay. I'm
Superman. It can happen to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm 280
Fakhri is fucking Superman, though.
Yeah, I'm fucking, Leo, at that time, I could jump from the World Trade Center, land on my feet, and just keep walking. I swear to God, that's what I thought. And it's funny because I've had conversations with other bodybuilders, and they've all told me the same thing. They were like, I didn't think anything was going to happen to me, but I'm Superman. Yeah. That's why I said it right now.
Yeah, so, it's true.
So, yeah, so it just kept getting worse and worse, and it was basically because of my high blood pressure, and and that's so all these pills that we took, Anadrol, Debol, Alteranibol, Anavar, all these fucking pills that we take, but I never took that white pill, that white blood pressure pill, and it finally caught up to me. But thank God now I'm good. My creatine levels came back at 1.37.
Wow.
Yeah, no, my filtration is not that high. My filtration is about 56%,
Okay, no, bro, that's not that bad. You don't understand.
That's not that bad.
No, people don't realize. Actually, in the US, most men that reach, for example, the age of 50 or so have around 60% filtration.
But it goes down every year.
Yeah. Most men in their 70s are near, they have impaired kidney function and near kidney failure. Yeah. Most people don't realize. So I'll let you continue, but I want to add some things that'll be helpful.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So, so after 2 years, I stopped taking everything in May 2018. It took me a little while to recover. I didn't get away from bodybuilding too much because I remember I posted something up, and I posted a picture up of me in a hospital, and fucking scumbags. I hope you die. I hope you don't make it.
Fucking social media is disgusting.
Yeah, it's fucking disgusting, bro. That's not even that's horrible to tell somebody. Like, if you don't like me because
they told you I hope you die.
Yes. That was on the post. Those were comments on the post.
Wow.
That's what you get for being 5'5", 280. That's what you get for being so big. But it was horrible, man. So I kind of got away from bodybuilding for a little bit. and then I eventually got back into it. I've never left. I still coach. I still have my stores and everything. But thank God, I'm healthy right now and it's moving forward. But health is wealth, man. And Nick said something the other day that made a lot of sense. Lean, mean for the win, and that's the whole the truth. And Nick, I kept that in my mind, bro. That is the honest truth, man. Thank you for saying that, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad
it helped you because someone said it to me, so I passed it along. So it's just,
What was your max creatinine?
Bodybuilder too. So,
what was the highest creatinine you reached?
It was 10.1 because my muscle was what's that called?
Rhabdomyolysis, probably.
Rhabdomyolysis. So I was going through that at a very fast rate, and I was in a hospital, and I burned off 30 pounds in a week. Being in a hospital. So everything was going, of course, with my kidneys and everything else. So my numbers were just going up, and up. And, they didn't know what the hell was going on. And of course, the first thing they tell you is dialysis, put the tube through your neck. And I'm like, man, I'm still walking. I'm still moving around. I'm not going to do that. So 2 years later, I'm still okay, man.
What many people don't know is that once you get on dialysis, it puts such pressure on your heart that you will die of heart failure very soon. So basically, unless you get a kidney transplant. So that's what many people don't know. Fly just hit me. Nick, your fly came over to my apartment. What the hell?
I thought you had a flinch, like a flinch.
Yeah, no, a fly. Your fly. Anyway, so the
other day, a fly was fucking with me, and I was getting flipping out.
Fakhri, health is wealth. I mean, this is the thing that I always tell people is that I don't trust two things with other people. Okay, two things: my money and my health. And the reason why is this: you can have the best financial advisor on earth, but if you are not managing your own money, you're gonna lose it. Okay, I promise you. You might be lucky, but I doubt it.
No power of attorneys ever. Ever. No power of attorneys ever.
No. Yes. And the second thing is health, because honestly, like that's why I started nerding my own health, is because I actually didn't face severe. My things were mainly like anxieties. I studied that stuff, and I basically was taking steroids. And actually, this was before what happened to you, but I knew about it was a few years actually before what happened to you. So 2014 or so, I started to realize, I read that hypertension causes kidney failure. And I noticed so many bodybuilders had kidney failure. So I thought stupidly, by the way, that if I took an ARB, an angiotensin receptor blocker, or some kind of kidney medication, that I would totally protect myself from steroids in terms of kidneys. I didn't know something that I found out very later. And by the way, most people in bodybuilding don't know till now. And I'm the first person to ever bring this up in bodybuilding. There are tons of studies that show this. So if you take a mouse, a female mouse, and you give it testosterone, the female mouse will eventually get kidney failure. And if you take a male mouse and you, what's that called? Basically cut off its balls. If you what's that called?
Castrate.
You castrate the male mouse, his kidneys will live longer. And if yes, so actually, and also if you notice in men and women, a kidney disease is far more common in men that are not taking steroids than women. Why? So maybe they're hypertensive, maybe they're bigger, but it's something beyond that. Actually, it turns out that androgenic signaling is kidney toxic. Mm-hmm. Androgenic signaling. So just androgenic signaling. So the more testosterone you have, the more likely doesn't matter how big you are, doesn't matter, nothing. That is kidney toxic. Now, the other thing that people don't, obviously everybody knows protein is at very high levels. Like what Milos does, 500 grams, that's kidney toxic. If you do that long enough, you'll end up like Nasser with the kidney done, which is what happened to Nasser. I mean, there's other things that happened to him, I'm sure, but he was taking 500 grams of protein. So there's the protein. Then
I'm a victim of that too. I have 400 grams every single day for 20 years, man.
Yeah,
longer than that.
Yeah, I took 500 grams of protein probably for 4 or 5 years also. Stupid. Anyway, that and then the size. Just the size, filtration rates. And by the way, the protein, some people say protein is not harder on the kidneys to digest. No, it is harder. It causes increased filtration rates, which causes, whenever you put stress on the kidneys, they want to grow. And when they grow, like you find in Dallas's study, you find his kidney weights were high. Why do they grow? They grow because they're trying to react to this increased filtration rates, and the actual growth breaks the glomeruli, causing the glomerular sclerosis, which is what Fuad found out recently when he did the ultrasound of his kidney. He found out there's scarring in the glomeruli, which is what happens to bodybuilding.
So what happens is when it grows, the nodules are so small because they're filtrations, right? So when it grows, the nodules get bigger, so there's more toxins going in there, and that's where the kidney even more.
That's true also, and also you feel the effects of that later, when the toxicity of the body.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay, so let me give you a tip on this. So
yes, please.
Something that Fuad recently learned, I don't know how. Fuad apparently has a very good doctor. I went on this drug 1 week before he did. I don't know how. So the group of drugs are called gliflozins. That's gliflozins. And they're also called SGLT2 inhibitors. SGLT2.
LT2.
Inhibitors, yeah. So these are actually diabetic medications that were first approved in 2013. What is surprising about these medications is they are basically the most interesting I think they're the most interesting diabetic medications since metformin. It's weird that diabetic medications seem to extend life. So metformin does that, even in people, even in any animal that does not have diabetes, their life extends from metformin, it's been shown. And the SGLT2 inhibitors do too. So how do they do that? SGLT2 is something that pulls out sodium and glucose from your bloodstream. Your kidneys filter glucose out of your bloodstream. Now, what happens though is that the SGLT2 actually it doesn't filter it out. The kidneys filter it out. The SGLT2 transporters transport that sodium and glucose back into your bloodstream. There's actually two of them that are mainly responsible for this. SGLT2 is responsible for 97% of the glucose that comes back into your bloodstream from your kidneys. SGLT1 is responsible for 3%. Now, what happens is, and the reason why I mentioned both of them is it's going to be important a little bit. So when you inhibit SGLT2, what happens is your kidneys pull out the glucose, pull out the sodium, and they don't put it back in. You pee it out. So you basically pee out what's called glucoseuria, which means sweet urine. You pee out glucose in your urine. For some reason, this thing extends life in people with diabetes and heart conditions by 30%. They reduce mortality by 30%. When you see mortality change that big, it's really confusing. It doesn't make sense. Just reduce. So, let me give some more background for the science nerds that are interested in this. Why is this interesting? Well, diabetes, you know how diabetes, what it does is cause high glucose levels in your bloodstream, right? And diabetics they often die younger. The weird thing is when insulin was invented and people started managing their blood sugar very well, the difference between people that actually manage their blood sugar well and those that don't doesn't turn out in their mortalities. They die about the same age. Even though the ones who don't manage it, they lose their limbs, they lose their eyes, they go blind, whatever, from diabetes complications, they die about the same age. And it was thought that, because it doesn't make sense, having high glucose in your blood should make you die younger. Well, it was thought that the insulin, being grows cancers, does all that stuff. The insulin was so bad that it made up for the difference. So SGLT2 inhibitors were the first drugs that without insulin are reducing that glucose level in the blood and show massive gains in lifespan. Now, that's not why I'm telling you about it. The other side effect, and by the way, I want to explain more of the more of the mechanics of it. When you block SGLT2, SGLT1 starts carrying some of the capacity. So it turns out you only block the total glucose from the blood and sodium about 40%. Even though it's 97%, the SGLT1 takes over. Now, why I'm mentioning this to you, the difference between the SGLT2 inhibitor drugs, some inhibit SGLT1 more or less. So if you want to be very specific to SGLT2, Empagliflozin is the most specific. It's the one that starts with E. You just remember it starts with E. So that's the one I take. So Empagliflozin is the most specific. Now, what's interesting about these drugs, right, is that shockingly, in the short term, in the acute sense, they lower EGFR. They lower filtration rates. So you wouldn't think that they would be good for the kidneys long term. In fact, The scientists researching this were curious. They were like, this might cause kidney failure because it's causing more work on the kidney. So, it's not sending it back. You're changing some function in the kidney. Maybe the kidney gets worse. Well, it turns, and the EGFR got worse acutely. So they thought maybe, no, it turns out the people with chronic kidney disease, their progression decreased tremendously over those years. The progression of chronic kidney disease decreased. This has not, to my knowledge, been seen other than with blood pressure medications. So this is very rare. And that's why Fuad just got on it. He didn't mention what the drug is, but I know because I went on it a week before he talked about it on his podcast, or a week and a half before. Now, so this is now what would I do if I had chronic kidney disease? Personally, first, obviously your doctor will tell you go on aggressive blood pressure medication. If you have low blood pressure, it's also bad for your kidney. So you don't want to go too far. You really want it to be like 110/75 or something, just below. So you know why? So that when you get stressed, it doesn't go too high. Because even episodic hypertension harms kidneys. For example, I was reading the best review of bodybuilders' kidney disease by scientists. And in that review, which I've cited in my channel many times, that review, these nephrologists were speculating that even the episodic hypertension from lifting very heavy weights, because I don't know if you know, your blood pressure can go 400 over something when you're lifting. Like I used to lift squat heavy and deadlift heavy. The reason you're getting nosebleeds is because it's 400 over something.
Guys' pimples burst.
Yeah, pimples are bursting. That's real because that's actually damaging the kidney too acutely. So anyway, the important thing is to keep it just so that it doesn't go too high when you're stressed, you have a bad day or something. Now, doctors will tell you that. Now, some doctors don't know this. Some nephrologists don't know this. There is speculation that the combination of an angiotensin receptor blocker and an ACE inhibitor may be better than just one or the other. Now, if you're going to do one or the other, and you have chronic kidney disease, I would pick ACE inhibitors, even though I use angiotensin receptor blockers. Because angiotensin receptor blockers are downstream, and they inhibit technically a little bit less. So I personally would choose an ACE inhibitor, even though they have more side effects. And well, actually, no, I take that back, actually, because so just to explain the mechanics of this, ACE inhibitors inhibit the conversion of angiotensin type 2. Angiotensin type 2 signals at two receptors, AT1 and AT2. Angiotensin receptor blockers block AT1. But for some, actually, AT2 signaling is protective for some parts of the body, including the brain and potentially the kidneys, because it's involved in some kind of growth factors in the body. So maybe I would actually pick an ARB because I might want that signaling. I don't know. Maybe it's an ACE. I don't know about that. I have to think more about it. But the important thing is that there are some studies that show the combined therapy of ACE inhibition, blocking angiotensin 2, as well as directly blocking AT1 being over here, blocking AT1 and blocking angiotensin 2 from ever coming up, both at the same time. So splitting your dose between two medications may be better than just one. And then the second thing I would do is add in empagliflozin. Personally, I would do that. There's a lot of research to support it. If you have the right nephrologist, he should already know about it. He should already know. He should already be like, yeah, that's really shocking. We've seen this in the studies. Either he should be saying, I don't want to do it with you because it's too experimental and it's off-label. Or if he doesn't know it, just fire him. Get a new nephrologist. Yeah. Or he'll tell you, yeah, I want to get you on this immediately. So that's what I would do personally.
Look it up and bring it up to him. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Final thing, I know I've kept you so long, but I have some quick questions I wrote for you.
I have no life. I could be on here all day.
You're so kind. First of all, favorite cars. You mentioned you had a Bentley, you had a Hummer H1, you had a Hummer H2. These are cool cars. What cars did you like?
What cars have I had?
Yeah, that you had that you loved.
Oh man. My first brand new car was the 1990 Celica. I bought it in 1990. And then in 1991, I bought a brand new 3000 Mitsubishi GT.
The Mitsubishi Evolutions.
The 3000 GT was the sports car. The first year it came out. And then in 1994, I bought a BMW 8 Series, the old school one.
Yeah.
I love
the 8 Series. That was a cool car.
840.
Yeah, the 840i. Yeah, that was it. I had a black one. So that was like about $130,000 car. It was like 18
That
years
was
old,
the fucking Batmobile back then.
That was the Batmobile, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I've had the H1 Hummer, the original one. I've had the H2 Hummer.
What do you think of the new Hummer that's coming out?
I'm buying it.
That thing. Did you get on? Did you get on the waiting list already and everything? You got on that?
No, you got on it?
No, I wanted to. I fucking was dying. I want that Hummer so bad, bro. But is it as big as an H2 or is it smaller like an H? It's like a hybrid of them too. It's not as big as the H2. No.
So it's like H2, H3.
It's not as small as the H3 though.
Right. It's fucking fast.
I forgot what chassis it's on.
I don't like the H3 though.
No, the H3 I never had. Yeah.
No, I actually had an H3. I tried to buy one to try to like jig it up myself, but it didn't work out. Well, I sold the fucking thing. I was hating it. I tried to make it cool, and I was like, "This thing sucks." It was too small inside. I honestly want to buy an H2 right now. I want to buy an H2.
That's my favorite car. If you ask me what my favorite car,
well, it's got to be the SUT though with the pickup.
Oh yeah, that's dope. I didn't have that one though.
I want that so fucking bad. I love that truck, man.
I think 2008 was the last time they made it, right?
Yeah, 07, 08, somewhere around there.
07,
yeah. You get them really cheap though, like at dealers.
Yeah. One of my friends, he has one. He has a white one, but it's like all fucking pimped out. He wanted to sell it to me. I was like, how much? He was like,
hold on. Do I know this guy, James?
Yeah, I know. Who?
James Molinari?
From Brooklyn or from
he's from Brooklyn. He's from Brooklyn. Bald head, Juice head?
Janet's brother, right? Jeanette's brother. She was a figure competitor.
Maybe. I knew James really well because he grew up in my town. Like he used to live in my town in Jersey. He used to live down the shore too.
I know who he is. His name sounds familiar.
He had all the whited out windows and the white rims.
Yes, that's not the car. I know who you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about? He did some time too, though. That guy.
Did he?
Yeah, he did hard time.
That's why he had a big time.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and he came out of jail when the Hummer was already like not cool anymore, and he was still driving. And I was like, James, like you can't drive that anymore like that. Like no one has white rims anymore. That was like 10 years ago.
You know whether an H2 Hummer with white rims? You know Steve Calabrese from Natural Body?
Yeah, of course.
He's had one for a few years.
But no one's got them anymore. They're cool again.
I love them, man. If I had the garage to park it,
you got nowhere to put it though.
Yeah, I mean, the cars are my thing, man. I mean, my wife's car's up next week, so I think we're picking up an X6i, the M series.
Oh, the new one is so sick.
Yeah, it's sick as hell. We went to test drive it last week. So
my favorite truck was the X6M when I had it. That was my favorite.
That's a dope truck. Yeah. I love cars, man. But you know what cars are? Cars are a fucking liability.
Yeah.
They over leverage you and they spend fucking money. So I'm cheap as fuck now, but for my wife, I'll get her the fucking M series. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. So, no, I like that car too, by the way. So the next thing is I want to ask you, do a lot of bodybuilders have serious kidney problems that they don't talk about? Like, so such that when listeners are listening and they know, for example, you had a kidney scare, they know certain people had Tom Prince, obviously stopped, and they don't, but are there way more people?
I think Nick can agree with this. Eventually something will happen to you.
Yeah.
So, but what I mean to say is, do most people that have the kidney issues not want to talk about it, or do most?
I don't think they even get blood work, Leo. I don't think they even.
Most people don't. No, most don't.
Okay.
They really don't. They really don't. When they say like, "Oh, I get bloods, I'm fine."
No, they don't get blood. I know that. Yeah. I know that. It's not easy to keep getting blood work. Nobody wants to do it, especially you don't want the bad information.
You know why I know they're not doing it? Because when I was younger, I didn't do it. And I said the same fucking excuse. Yeah, I go all the time. I'm healthy.
Wait, hold up. You lied to me, Nick?
This is pre-Fakhri. This is when, remember, Nick started juicing at 15. So from 15 to 20 years old, I didn't have a Fakhri in my life, really. And then when I went to you when I was already dead, pretty much, then you took me out of the casket and brought me back to life.
So Fakhri, being a fellow half Arab, I wanted to ask you, I guess you must be a little bit proud of Big Ramy being a legend. By the way, you know what's funny about Ramy? Ramy's name is not Ramy. I guess you probably don't. Do you speak Arabic?
I understand more than I can speak it, yeah.
Yeah. But you probably speak more than Fuad, apparently.
We actually sold Rami's. Me and Fakhri went to the show together, New York Pro. Remember when he did New York Pro? And we sat next to each other going, what the fuck?
Wait, what was that?
I'm quitting.
2000. I don't know.
Yeah.
2000. It was like 10 years ago when he did New York Pro. It was his first show in New York, in the United States.
So
me and Fakhri were sitting together.
What's your idea of why he can't get that grainy condition? What's your opinion? Is it a genetic thing?
I don't know. I mean, it's
because you know a lot of inside stuff also from Nick, and for current stuff, like
I think we mentioned something earlier, on another subject. There's levels to everything. He has massive size. He has good structure for his size. I mean, it's not it's not a Lila Brada physique, but he has his waist is there, his quads are oversized, of course. Yeah. But he's such a big guy. He could be very dominant, but he hasn't been peeled. He hasn't came in peeled, and neither has Rolly. So, or Cedric, so when people say, well, if these guys come in peeled, but if has been like 10 years. Yeah. So, if it's going to happen, it has to happen now. If Chad can't do it, it can't be done.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Then it's a genetic thing. Like he's big, and that's how
or I think mentally too. I mean, I don't know how. I'm not insulting. I just don't know how strong he is mentally. Like, we don't know if he cheats. We don't know if he does cardio hard. We don't know how hard he trains, and all those things are factors at the end of the day. So
huge factors. Those are huge factors. You could get somebody who doesn't have a good physique, and then get him ready for a show, and he'd be fucking sliced to death.
Yeah.
He'd be shredded. He just won't have the size. So there's a lot of factors to it. But I hope he does come in shape. I
want to see him crush everybody. I really do.
So there's a channel on YouTube that they interview pro bodybuilders, and they ask sometimes, they don't ask what gear they use. I think that's too forward, but they ask what test dose do you use? And for some reason, all these guys use way less than the people I know in person that tell me the truth. So because I live in LA, and so I know some people are gold, but I also used to live in the Middle East, and in the Middle East, people just tell the truth. So usually most of my friends that were huge, pro bodybuilder level huge, in the Middle East, those guys are amateurs. But most of them were taking, on average, 4 to 5 grams total. That's what they were in the Middle East. I'm just telling you. Here in the US, I've heard things like 3.5. I don't know if they lie at golds. I don't know what their deal is. What I wanted to ask is this intelligent bodybuilder going to use 750? Okay, maybe he's using other things. What I want to ask is this. A total dose for a bodybuilder. Is anybody using 2 grams at the pro level? Total dose. That's not black?
I know guys that use a gram of tests a day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
No, but the way I get it, the problem I have for the listeners is that I'm like, guys, how can you be so gullible? Look at it this way. Maybe 10,000 grams will not be, 10 grams will not be good. For sure, you get to a point of diminishing returns. But if you're telling me you're using 2 grams total, you will get better at 3 grams. Is that not right?
No, but here's the problem. Here's the problem between this sport and every other sport. So let's take basketball.
I get what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So basketball, you know that you could shoot the 3-pointer. Basketball, you could dribble. Basketball, you can play defense. So there's something there that that you're good at. Baseball, you have to hit the ball. Every sport is an objective way. But in bodybuilding, you have this thing, these things that are steroids, right? So if 1,000 milligrams doesn't work, then 2,000 must be better. And if 2,000 doesn't work, and I don't look like Nick at 2,000 milligrams, that means Nick is taking 5,000 milligrams.
Yeah, that's.
And that's how it works. And that's the whole thing. Like I always say, if Ronnie Coleman never said like he injected his eye, there'd be a lot of motherfuckers walking around like this tomorrow. And that's the truth. That's the problem with bodybuilding, excessive bodybuilding. I could tell you what grams I use for the USA's. Like I said, I'm very transparent. For the USA's, I use 750 milligrams of test. I use 600 milligrams of EQ. I use 300 milligrams of Tren. I did 50 milligrams of Anavar. I did 25 milligrams of T3 the last 6 weeks. I did 40 milligrams of hollow testing the last 6 weeks. Proviron I put in there. And I won the USA's with perfect scores, and nobody was in the shape I was. No.
But your genetics are a little bit better, though. I think people use more than that.
No, but that was to turn pro the light heavyweight. So the biggest I ever got was 280. When I was at 280 pounds, I was taking 2,000 milligrams just of test a week.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. At that level of size, you're probably taking 5 grams total or 4 grams of everything together. 4 grams, let's say.
But I'll tell you, the best I ever looked and the strongest I ever was around like 250, 260 with 1,000 milligrams of test, maybe 1,250.
Yeah, but how much was your injectable total?
Injectable, oh man, so 12.
That's what I'm counting. I'm counting the injectable total.
Get the calculator out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know it's not that bad, Nick.
No, that's what I mean. That when I'm saying 4 grams, I'm talking about injectable totals, like EQ 1,000, 2 grams of test, and 1,000 something else.
EQ 1,000, that's liver failure like in 2 years, man. You know what I'm saying? Kidney failure.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so like let's say at 250, 260, I was 1,250 a test, 600 EQ, 400 Tren. So we're still talking about, close to 2,000, maybe 2,500 per week.
At 280?
At 265, 270, yeah. But Leo, you have to understand.
Are you taking orals on top of that?
Yeah, I was taking oral, but orals are probably like 50. So I love orals.
But they don't count. Orals don't count.
Yeah, those count different.
Orals don't count. They don't do nothing for you.
What I mean
I digest it right away. It's gone.
Let's do 1,000 milligrams of Anavar.
What I mean to say is this: if you're including orals, they count way more per milligram. So like if I'm taking 50 milligrams of Anadrol every day for the
week,
that's like a gram of something else. Because it makes a bit, in me at least, it makes a huge difference. 50, I start to blow up. 50, well, not blow up compared to you guys, but I start to get a little bit of volume, a little bit. So what? Okay. So you're saying 2.5 grams of injectables, but then there's an oral like Anadrol or Dianabol, something serious there.
Yeah, I mean, but you got to lift heavy. You have to eat. There's a whole bunch.
No. I know. We're this channel's for smart guys. No one here is thinking that if they take that, they're gonna look like it. And by the way, what I need to explain to people, if you want to know the truth to that, just take that amount and you won't look like it. I've done it. I've taken because look, the truth is I have a friend and it was a world record holder, powerlifter, maybe the greatest bench presser in history, I would say personally. And this guy takes a lot of good. He was taking 10 grams when I was last talking to him. The last time I talked to him about this, he was taking 10 grams a week. Yeah. And this guy is, he's number 1 in the world. He was. So when he was taking 10, I was like, wait a minute. What if I took 6? I've never taken more than 3 grams total. Yeah. Injectable. So I tried it. It just got worse for me. So
let me tell you a quick story, right? So I'm gonna say the names because this is out of respect to these 2 guys specifically. I worked with Tony Freeman and I worked with Dennis James, right? So I sent them their protocols, very simple protocols, nothing high, nothing fucking crazy. Both of them called me back and said, "Fact." I was like, "What? We've never done shit like this." Okay,
yeah, and that's I've heard that. But Dennis, I thought Dennis was the king of huge mass monsters. Really,
it looks that way. But I'll tell you one thing: Dennis called me back and said, "I've never taken this much. What the hell is this drug? What's this and what's that?" And that's Dennis James. So at the end of his career, which he was already a Hall of Famer. Same thing with Tony Freeman.
At the end of his career.
Yes. So so when you talk about guys taking that much, and you have these 2 Hall of Fame goats that never even took that much. Think about it. It's mostly genetics.
So Dennis was conservative with GH?
Very conservative.
Because he was the GH super responder. That was the guy that you just saw that beautiful. I mean, that beautiful.
He had the best off-season body in the history of bodybuilding.
He was Mr. Olympia off-season.
Yeah. 100%.
Those pics from Thailand every year, you were like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, fucking insane.
Well, he wasn't a big-time user.
Yeah, but then what I'm trying to say is that anybody taking, so now it's hard when we involve orals. So these total gram doses don't really make sense. But what I'm trying to say is there's a level at which if you increase it, you'll look better. And there's a level at which you will no longer get better. Every bodybuilder that's smart enough will get to that point realize this is not helping, then take it out. So he will get to the max effective dose if he's smart.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's stupid. He left stuff on the table. He left gains on the table. So every bodybuilder will find his max effective dose. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, so I wanted to ask also depression and anxiety in bodybuilding. How common is it? Do you think it's related to, because I believe so, a lot of it is related to the effects these androgens have in the brain long term. They don't have long term, they have some some negative effects. Specifically, you start to feel a lack of feeling of at peace. Like, you know what I mean? That feeling of comfort and things being right in the world. Things start to feel just off all the time. Do you feel like that's part of the androgen thing? Is anxiety in bodybuilding more common than people know?
Again, me and Nick have spoke about this a lot. I've suffered from anxiety and depression for years. It could be because of my childhood. It could be because of the things I've done. It could have been because of everything. As a bodybuilder, I can't say that I suffered from that. I also can't say I had any rage, any aggression because of that. You know, I have rage and I have aggression, but because of how I used to live, I'm not gonna lie. You know, but that's just, you know, I came up a certain way, and that was my lifestyle. You know, now as an older guy, of course, I'm more settled down. But what I could tell you is, when I stopped bodybuilding, when I stopped taking gear, you know, everybody had told me, you're gonna get more depressed, you have more anxiety. I'm like, shit, if I get more depressed and more anxiety, I might hang myself. So it really didn't bother me until probably recently that I got back into the gym like this year, like really hardcore. You know, I've never stopped training, and, you know, I want to look a certain way like I used to. So now, you know, Nick, by the way, that the video you did yesterday was a great video, man. You know,
thought so?
Back to the gym. Yeah, it was fucking awesome, man. Thank you for putting that up.
Thank you.
You know?
Thank you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So over the last couple of months, I felt it, and I feel the same way, like you said, Nick. You know, I was in the gym. Many times I've been in the gym the last couple of months. I'm like, you know, and I've texted you too. I'm like, yo, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, I'm working out without making no fucking gains for the first time.
I think I'm going backwards.
We're going backwards, yeah. And inside us, you know, we could do whatever we want and continue with our life and you know, and take bodybuilding out of our lives, but it's still in our heart and it's still in our mind, no matter what. Like I hit a pose in the middle of the living room. My wife would say, damn, you're always gonna be a bodybuilder. You know, that's never gonna come out of you. Well, I come out of the shower and I'm hitting a pose and she's like, what are you doing? You know, like your love handles are showing now. You know what I'm saying? But it's real. I think depression and anxiety is real for a lot of reasons. And one is a lot of people get into bodybuilding because of low self-esteem and they really have nothing else. So they find something and that creates what they have, and they can't achieve their goals. And that right there leads to depression and anxiety when you can't achieve your goals and you push it so much. Also, financial issues causes depression and anxiety. Relationship issues. It's hard to keep a relationship when you're a bodybuilder. Extremely.
Forget about it. Yeah.
Either you don't have one or you have a relationship that's a toxic relationship. So I think, and you're right. The androgenic effect of steroids, you know, it does create some type of chemical structure change in your mind. There's no doubt about it, because I know a lot of people that are suffering from it, and they stop bodybuilding, you know, and now they're suffering from it even more. So I agree 100%. That's something that's not addressed. And I know Nick addresses that a lot, and it's not addressed because you have the alpha male mentality of I'm tough, I'm strong, I'm a bodybuilder. Yeah. I take steroids, so I can't show no fucking weakness, and that hurts other people because instead of helping people understand what's going on in their lives, you know, you're not being open about what's going on in your life to make them understand that it's normal and needs some type of counseling or some type of help.
You know, Fakhri, it's actually the opposite now in YouTube fitness. It's very common to talk about your anxiety. And
well, they're making it like a fad now. It's
like a fad. Exactly. So that's why I've been noticing a lot of these bodybuilders, like they're saying that their anxiety before competition is so bad that they're basically failing at the competition, which is, I'm not making fun of them. What I'm saying is that if you know, Fakhri, maybe you're better connected. If you know any pro bodybuilders who have this problem, I think I can help them, like genuinely. I think I can give them some supplements and stuff that will undo the effects of the androgens pre-contest on their brain. I think I can make them calm without affecting their bodies. So if you know somebody that just a test case, I'll do it for free. and just see how he goes. And if that works, maybe there's some other people, because there are things that, look, just like you said earlier, I love the way you said it. You said, I took all these other pills, but there was this white pill that I could have just taken. And that's what I always tell, but I hate this, man. When people comment on my channel, they're like, I don't want to take a blood pressure medication. Do you have any supplements that will do it? I'm like, dude, are you kidding? The steroids, do you want supplement steroids? Should I give you a supplement steroid? Like what about those supplements that say they'll raise your testosterone? Should I give you one of those? Would that help you with your competition?
Yeah, I'll put it in that bottle for you. So
yeah, exactly. So no. What I'm saying is he's not worried about pharma when he buys his testosterone.
No.
But he's worried about pharma when he so anyway, the point is, like, dude, save your life with the ARBs or with the ACE inhibitor or something like that. But there are other ancillaries I believe should be in every cycle to protect the brain. And I really think that we could popularize them and at least save these guys from this anxiety that they keep talking about.
Yeah, but we need people like you, because a lot of people don't have the knowledge you have, nor do they want to put themselves out there to help people, So what you're doing is, it's a blessing to not just bodybuilders, but everybody else who you help. So, I'm going to say this myself. I appreciate you for doing this, because not many people do.
Thank you. No, the only reason, it's not even knowledge, that the reason I know this stuff is because I battled this stuff in my own life and I figured out what works. And I live anxiety free. I don't have any benzos in my life. I don't have any withdrawals. I don't have any problems. I don't have nothing, because I spent like 10 years figuring this out for myself. And even if I took Trenbolone right now, I bet you I'd be pretty calm. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to say. Another thing I wanted to ask you, have you ever heard of this guy called Greg Doucette? And what do you know about him, his background? Have you ever heard he's a snitch?
Which one? Who's Greg Doucette?
Greg Doucette is a Canadian bodybuilder.
Fakhri's not good with YouTube people.
Oh, no, he doesn't know about him. Okay, forget about it. Yeah. So I want to ask you,
he's the same one I asked you about a while ago. You said the same thing.
That's the guy that charges $30,000, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you don't know about. So I wanted to ask you, how common is snitching in bodybuilding? And are the snitches known? Because I get messages all the time about snitches, and I don't know who to believe, because some people are like, this really well-known guy is a well-known snitch. Is it accepted in bodybuilding? People deal with snitches all the time? Because in the way I grew up is, there are two things you can't forgive, is a pedophile and a snitch. There's only two things. So are there snitches and people just get along with it? What is the deal? Tell me. Especially coming from your background.
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer this question with my experience and my background. Okay, so a quote from Mike Tyson: "Everybody's tough until they get punched in the face." Yep. So everybody is tough. Everybody's a criminal. Everybody is a moneymaker until they get caught, right? So when you're facing time, people are gonna snitch. And I'm telling you this because I faced 30 years, and I didn't, and you could ask, anybody that I ran with, I just didn't. Snitching, to me, snitching is the most fucking horrible thing you could do, especially if you were involved in the wrongdoing. Yeah. So is it common? Listen, I don't want to, get anybody upset at me, but there's not too many tough people in the sport. No. And at the end of the day, when something happens to you, they're gonna snitch, and it's unfortunately, but honestly, like, what the fuck are you snitching on? Like, if you get caught with $1 million of fucking steroids, you can't do a year, 2 years in jail.
That's what I'm saying. They don't do it all the time. Yeah.
Come on, man. It's like, you're not facing
they're not facing 5 years. That's what they're facing 1 year. They do 6 months instead of 1 year, and they snitch. I don't get it.
Not even, bro. Like, they're facing probation, and they're like, oh shit, I got a name. Yeah. It's horrible.
So
it's a horrible thing.
So fucking true.
Yeah, Dave brought on the snitch. He's a Hollywood guy. No, I know what you laughed about, though. Dave brought on the snitch. He's a Hollywood guy, a Jewish guy, who was talking about stories from back in the day, and he was talking about how he snitched, and it's all right because he was doing something wrong, and I was disgusted. But then I realized, wait a minute, you can bring this guy on a bodybuilding channel, nobody says anything? Because for me, I would think nobody would want to deal with a snitch after that. Like zero. Like you will not touch him. But in bodybuilding, it seems like people will still work with people that they know are snitches. Is that the case?
It is, but I won't.
It is. Okay. So no, of course you don't. Look, a man that's married for 20 years is a man that respects loyalty, is a man that's honest, you know? Maybe there are snitches that are married for 20 years too. I don't know. But that's kind of stuff is a testament to the kind of person that you are. That's not a easy thing. Okay. So I think this is the last thing. Who are your favorite top coaches? Like, who do you respect their coaching other than Nick?
Well, why would Nick be on my list? No, Nick is a very good coach. That's I'm not just saying that.
I always say that people don't realize Nick knows a lot about. I mean, he has unbelievable ideas about bodybuilding.
And I did piggyback off Fakhri. I'm not gonna lie, some stuff. I learned from the great. That's all.
So Nick hasn't been coaching for 20 years. But if you had to rank the coaches for like the last once he started coaching, he's definitely up there. And I don't kiss somebody's ass. That's my good friend, but that's just a fact. Like he's up there, one of the top coaches.
Who are your top five right now, other than Nick?
The Mount Rushmore. That's just it. The Mount Rushmore coaches. You have, you have Chad Nichols,
Chris Aceto.
You have Chris Aceto. You have people are going to disagree with this, but you have Hani. I mean, how many Miss Olympias does he have? That's just it. How many Miss Olympias does he have?
But is he just good at selecting the top ones?
It could be, or the top ones select him because of Phil Heath and everybody else. But the fact is, you can't take away his numbers. Chris Aceto, of course. Chris Aceto. If I had to pick a coach to coach me, it would be Chris Aceto.
I was wondering.
It would be Chris Aceto.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. That's what I was curious.
People have their opinions about George Farah, but when George Farah concentrates, he concentrates.
Well, yeah, George went through hell and back, so before all this health issues, he was fine. But
thank God he's alive, man.
Yeah, I know it's crazy. It's crazy.
You're talking about the Mount Rushmore, man. I mean, if you're talking about young kids, there's a lot of good young coaches, but. A lot of them are selective. A lot of them have like one or two great clients, and then the rest of the client list is not good,
Let's see them last for 10 years first. You know what I mean? Like just because you're good 1 year doesn't make you a good coach.
Great point.
What do you think of Nick Walker's coach in terms of his coach as whatever?
Nick, you want to answer that?
Yeah. Well, no, Nick. I don't want Nick to answer that. I want you to answer that.
I got a problem.
You have nothing personal either, so
yeah, I got a problem with Matt Jensen because Matt Jensen took credit years ago for a couple of my clients, that lived by him, and he took pictures with them, and he was at the show with them. I understand he was young and he was trying to make a name for himself, but you just don't do that, No. So that's my problem with Matt. Do I think Matt's a good coach? Well, I don't know. I mean, Dallas was a problem. I'm not going to blame that on Matt, but that was the problem. Nick is a fucking Nick is an animal now. Let's see how long he could last. But
the scary part about that story too is, just for 2 seconds, not to intervene, but I was, you're friends with Dom Cordone too, and I watched Dom coach Nick firsthand because Nick came on my podcast. I actually hired Nick to work for me. And then he decided to leave Dom after whatever show that was. And Dom was already worried about his health because he wasn't on top of it. Number two, he was already pushing him hard enough as it is for as old as he was. He didn't need to push any harder. And Nick just wanted to do more and more and more. And number three, they all think that they can, the grass is green on the other side. And he kept thinking that Dom wasn't good enough for him or whatever the case may be. And now I see what he looks like. It like freaks me out almost that – God willing, what is he fucking doing to himself? You know what I mean? God willing, what is
I'm hoping he's like Jay Cutler.
I hope maybe he hit his stride finally, maybe or something. Because he wasn't the greatest bodybuilder before. Let's be honest. And he's still not the best, but just the amount of muscle he's put on is scary.
Are you saying you hope he's in like Jay in terms of his efficiency at dealing with those things? Like he doesn't need one?
Yeah.
I hope for his sake. I don't know him personally. We've talked a couple of times online, but I don't know him personally. I hope he's like Jay Cutler, that was able to be that big, that young.
Yeah.
And have a long career and stay healthy afterwards. That's
right. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if Nick ever hears this podcast or anyone does, tell him, go get a cardiac FMRI just to be sure. That's
how about just get blood work? Because I know he hasn't done that in 2 years.
Well, no, that blood work will not tell him if he has atherosclerosis.
Well, I'm just saying, let's start with step one.
But then he has those vascular veins in his legs that are just, it's not a good look. Like, look at his legs.
It's not that's scary. I don't know if you ever noticed this. Like, obviously, whenever anyone's big, when they breathe, they're going to be doing this when they breathe.
Yeah.
The way he does it is really scary to me. Like, on the podcast, his whole body.
His whole body's moving.
That's not a good sign. That means your heart is really.
What is that?
Well, it has to do.
I thought he was fidgety, and then I realized he's not even moving. I just see this.
Not even moving. It's
just he's on a boat or something.
Yeah, his heart is trying to pump a boat, basically. And it's not going to last very long. That's basically what that is. Okay. Fakhri, I think we'll end it here. It was such a pleasure, really. I can't tell you.
Fakhri, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate everything, guys.